You're good? All right. It is 9 o'clock on June 25th. We'll call the Wright County Board of Commissioners to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the first clear skied Tuesday I think we've had in a while. Welcome everyone. It looks like we're going to have a beautiful week potentially next week for the 4th of July. So as we do in Minnesota, we like to talk about weather. It's very nice.
We do.
We'll begin with the dispensing of the minutes from June 18th. Is there any modifications, corrections?
Mr. Chair, I do have a couple, I'll be the grammar police today in case Chris missed it. On page 2 of 7, very last paragraph, first line, Ralph stated that he has been to the location twice and thinks it is, probably add it in there. Okay, and then on page 3 of 7, first paragraph, second line from the end of the first paragraph, residents in this probably area purchase their land. In this, it just says in this purchase, so probably in this area, or Derek, you were probably, you made the comment, so however you want to correct it.
In the residents in the area are purchase their land based on, yeah.
Oh, or residents in the area, that would work too, yeah.
All right.
In the area, well, you have to put area in there, or something.
Or you just can put residents purchase their land based on, just removing in this, residents purchased their land. Yep.
However you, like I said, however you want to correct it. That's all I had.
Yep. Sure, I just had under, just a clarification on what ship is.
What page?
It is, 7 of 7, under the advisory committee, advisory board updates.
Yeah, it's a big thing. People float in the ocean.
It is. State health improvement plan is what it is.
Oh, not safety and health investments project.
And then I think.
So this is wrong in the parentheses then?
Yep.
Susan, you got that? So in the parentheses, it's actually wrong.
And I think Ralph Burrell spells his name with one R, but I'm not sure.
Yep, he's one of the 1R Burrells. There,
The one R Burrell.
it's my Uncle Jack. Uncle Jack never changed his name, so.
All right. So with that, we have, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dahlheiden.
We could promote Ralph to 2 Rs.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second on the minutes with the modifications. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, minutes are approved. Today's agenda, is there anything that needs to be, is there anything that needs to be added to today's agenda?
Morning, Board. Requesting an item for discussion. It's the coffee with commissioners and scheduling those 2 dates.
Okay, I think we'll just kind of add it as a real quick first item after the consent agenda, so the staff doesn't have to stick around, so you'll be the 9:01 item, all right, to set a coffee with commissioners time and date. With that addition, is there a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dahlheiden, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
I don't like coffee.
You don't like coffee? They'll make hot chocolate for you.
Okay. Can I get hot chocolate, Jamie? Okay. All
Gonna
right.
be off.
August, and that's gonna be the best thing in August.
No tea either. No, that's even worse.
Okay, you get a cold glass of milk. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Today's agenda is approved. Consent agenda. Would anybody like to remove anything from today's consent agenda for further discussion?
Mr. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda and remove item C for just a quick question.
Okay. C.
So I'd like to make the motion to approve the consent agenda less item C.
That's item C.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Dahlheiden to approve today's consent agenda with the removal of item C. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is approved. We will now deal with item C, information technology, refer Armor 800 megahertz radio fee for 2020 to the IT committee. Mr. Kelly?
Do you have a,
I was just wondering where it came up, because I'm on the Emergency Services
Oh,
Board, and I
sure.
know we talk about, the costs to the county, and I think we've been keeping it pretty steady at the amount that they charge per radio and whatever, and I was wondering, it's one of those things, I guess, where it's kind of shared pretty equally across the county if the county absorbs some of that cost. And I kind of feel bad about putting too much of it onto the local fire departments, especially the schools, as far as raising the fee. I know we're not doing it now, we're just going to talk about it, but I was wondering if they're...
Commissioner Burrell, you know what, would you do me a favor and actually sit on the IT committee for me on Wednesday, tomorrow? I have a Trailblazer meeting. You're here for Ways and Means anyways tomorrow, so if you want to sit at
okay.
that meeting, then you can discuss it with
I can
Commissioner
do it.
Dahlheiden.
Okay,
Can you do that?
I can do that.
And,
Perfect.
and Mr. Chair, I believe that this county still has the lion's share of the cost
Yeah.
for the
we do, yes.
radios.
Yeah, it was just for discussion.
Right.
Because it really isn't all equal.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it was just for discussion.
Who brought it up, though? It's not, oh, you lead it, okay.
I think it was something that.
He's
we
always
talked
out looking for our bottom line.
Well, it's just an item we review every year as part of the budget, and so we wanted to address it to get
Right,
some
and I
guidance
know,
from the group.
I've kind of
here, too.
changed my tune on that a little bit, because I'm thinking, well, they're the ones using it, they can pay for it, but I'm not hearing any complaints from Howard Lake people saying Buffalo has more radios and they get a bigger subsidy. Well, they have a bigger need and whatever. I'm just not hearing the bickering out there. I think they're kind of happy to have the county
Oh, yeah.
absorb a little bit of it, so. We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, then I'll make a motion to approve item C from the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Houston to approve the information technology referral on the 800 megahertz radio. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item is referred to the IT committee for tomorrow. Okay, now the 901 to set a copying commissioner's date. I think there was 2 potential dates that were passed out.
Correct. I have the flyer. So we're hoping these dates work for you folks. We're hoping you can come to both, but at least we could have representation at each of the meetings would be wonderful. So the Coffee with the Commissioners, this is to roll out our Safe Families and Connected Kids initiative. We talked about this at our Health and Human Services Board meeting, and Lisa Welter, the state director, is available on these 2 dates and times. What we will do is we will still send you a sign-up genius so you can get it on your calendar with an email alert when it's coming up. And the 2 dates are on the flyer, July 23rd, 1:30 to 2:30, and August 8th, 9:30 to 10:30. So we, as we've discussed previously, we're sending out the letters to all the local churches. That will be later today, inviting them to come, and we'd love to have you come as well. We're also going to be handing out coffee cups to the church folks that come, saying that they had coffee with the commissioners with our logo on it, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so you're sending it to just the churches in Wright County?
Correct.
Okay. I'm just wondering if you shouldn't maybe send some to some of the churches in Rogers. Because I know there's a lot of people from that eastern end of the county that go into a couple of those churches in Rogers.
Okay. And I can check
Well,
our
as well as
listing.
Riverside Church in Sherburne County.
Yes, that'd be the other one, just the
That's
border.
Monticello.
That's, yep, across the river.
Just across the river.
Yep.
Yep.
It just
And I,
it wouldn't hurt to have as many people as possible for discussions.
absolutely, yep, absolutely. I'll check with Valerie, she's our foster care recruiter. She's the one that puts the list together and does mailings out to churches, so I'll do some asking on who's on our list.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking a couple of those churches across the border.
Right.
Over in Rogers area.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any just off the other side of Hanover. Actually, there is. Just out of Hanover.
Salem Lutheran up on the hill.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just thinking, you know, and Rockford might be the same. I don't know what's over on that side, on the Hampton
Yep,
County side.
Rockford, Delano, now that I'm thinking of Highway 12 and 55, there's a couple of churches that are just across the border into Hennepin.
I'm just thinking, trying to be as inclusive as possible, because those people do have residents.
Right, they might live in Wright County, but be going to church right out.
Yeah.
Do those dates look like they'll be a conflict?
They're good for me.
Good for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll work for
So,
me.
would you like a motion, Mr. Chair, or
Yep.
to set this?
And this is be, yep.
Let me look real quick, Chris, if you don't
Okay.
mind. The 23rd.
It's during the county fair, Charlie.
Yeah.
No, it's
Well,
not.
one of them is.
No, it's not.
No,
It's the
no,
day
right before.
So the fair doesn't start on a Tuesday.
It starts on Wednesday.
In August 8th. Yeah, looks good.
All right.
All right, I'll make a motion to set coffee with your Wright County Commissioners for the Safe Families Connected Kids Initiative on Tuesday, July 23rd at 1:30 at the Law Enforcement Center, and Thursday, August 8th at 9:30 a.m. at the Law Enforcement Center.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hewsom, second by Commissioner Dahlheiden. You hit a home run there because rarely ever do we
I
get to
know.
have a date suggested, much less two dates.
You picked good dates.
So without any further discussion, having none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Good. You don't even have to edit it for print now.
Yeah.
9:02, Mr. Chris Mickelson will be stepping forward here for Mr. Bruce Kimmel. Good morning, Chris.
Morning.
From what I understand, you have some good news to share with us this morning.
I do indeed. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. In front of you are three handouts. The first is the sale day report for the Series 2019A certificate sale. The second is the sale day report for the Series 2019B certificate sale. And then the third is bar chart for the county's existing bonds. I'm sure you're familiar with this at this point. So some quick background. Again, my name is Chris Mickelson, Others and Associates. Myself and my colleague Bruce Kimmel have worked with the county on previous bond issues, and we assisted the county with the sale of both the 2019A and 2019B certificates of participation. Those sale dates took place on June 20th for both sales at 11 a.m., and then the pricing committee convened and reviewed the sale results at 1 p.m. that afternoon and confirmed that the sale results did in fact comply with the parameters resolution that the board approved a couple weeks prior to that, or a week or so prior to that. So the first thing that we can go through is the Series 2019A sale day report. This was for $50,085,000 certificates of participation. And you can see on the first page, inside page there, that is to finance construction of the county's government center. The rating that was obtained on this, and we'll touch on the rating report maybe in more detail here once I've gone through both of these sale day reports, but just to briefly touch on this, S&P affirmed the county's existing AA+ GO rating, and then with these specific COP issues, both the 19A and the 19B, there was a one-notch decrease, still a very strong credit rating of a AA given by S&P for these sales. Three bids were received, the best bid coming from Wells Fargo. You can see very tight results here, the low bid here at a 297, which was something that we were very, very impressed with, and we hope that the county was also pleased with that result. I think to break 3% was something that, frankly, we didn't really think that was likely. So to see such strong bidding speaks to a number of things. One, the market's demand for municipal bonds, or in this case, municipal certificates, but the very strong credit quality of the county, and then also both investors and the rating agency seeing the essential purpose of both this facility as well as the law enforcement training facility, with the county's ability to not appropriate, and we'll touch on that when we touch on the rating report. The investors and the rating agency seeing that that's just not going to happen here. This was really priced similarly a GO bond, and I would say even a AAA GO bond is the type of results that we saw here. And you can see how tight the bidding was. Of the 3 bids received, just really within about 15 basis points spread. But for a bond issue of this size, that's still very real money. In this case, between those, the high bid and the low bid, about a $2.5 million spread in interest savings there. This principal amount was decreased. It originally started as a $54 million estimate and was brought down to this final par amount of $50,085,000 as a result of a significant amount of reoffering premium being received. Premium is the result of really being in this low interest rate environment for the last 10 or so years by underwriters building premium into the pricing structure that allows the coupons to be printed at a rate that's higher than what's actually yielding to the investors. And you can see that playing out here on the bid tabulation, where those early maturities, especially the non-callable maturities, are 5s across the board, but those aren't yielding anything close to 5% to the end investor. The way that banks are able to print a 5% coupon is by pricing the bonds above 100, above par, and then ultimately, that causes them to yield less than the stated rate on the coupon. So in this sale, just under $4 million of reoffering premium was received, and then what that allowed the county to do is basically buy down the par amount by roughly the same amount, so that the bond sale here was, the certificate sale here rather, was just over $50 million. The true interest cost, after all of these adjustments being made, actually came in slightly below what the original 2.97 was. It came in at actually 2.9543%. And you can see their COI, cost of issuance, $162,000. That's our fee as well as the rating agency's fee and Kennedy and Graven's fee for the bond counsel services. The yield to end investors here ranges anywhere from 1.4% to 3.15%. And the total net P&I at $80,748,320. And so if you recall back to our earlier pre-sale estimates, this savings is really anywhere from $5 to $8 million from what we were originally estimating. And we felt that our estimates were, while maybe slightly conservative, were really in line with what we anticipated as a sale result. So again, to achieve a result that's that much better than our pre-sale estimates is really something that the county should really be very proud of. UMB will be both the trustee and the paying agent for this transaction, and you can see that the bonds here will be, or the certificates will be callable December 1st, 2029 for the December 1st, 2030 maturities and those following. And the closing date, the date that the county will receive proceeds from this, is July 18th, 2019. So next we can just briefly touch on the bid tabulation that's attached. You can see there Wells Fargo is the low bidder here with that, what was 2.97 interest rate, that was reduced to 2.95 after the restructuring from the premium. The following 2 bidders, Baird and JP Morgan, were 2 and 3. Sometimes with these larger bond issues, larger certificate issues, you'll see more bidders come to the sale. And with something like this, what ended up happening, especially with Baird, was a number of the smaller bidders joined up in what's called a syndicate. And so rather than seeing 7 or 8 bids coming into this, it was many different underwriters that came in. However, Baird isn't necessarily large enough, and those others like a Piper Jaffray or a Northland, they're not necessarily large enough to take on an entire $50 million transaction on their own, and so they partner up. And so that causes some consolidation among the number of bids, but still to see 3 bidders and to see as much demand, through that very low TIC is, a very good result, obviously.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could I ask you a quick question?
By all means.
Chris, when they're callable in 2029, well, when they issue right now, the ticket, the interest rate is going to be like 5%, it looks like on some of them here anyway. But because they're buying down, they're putting money up front, whoever buys these bonds, they'll get a higher interest rate, but they're investing, they're buying it down kind of. to get a higher interest.
Exactly. Basically,
I don't know the right words, but
Yeah, it's referred to as yield burning. So instead of achieving a 5% return on your investment, you're only achieving maybe a 2% return on your investment because you're paying at a price that's greater than the face value of the bonds.
right. Now, and we do that at the county. I know Bob's not here, but I know we have done that. We have some bonds that are returning like 5%, but in reality, it's only 2% or whatever because he paid this upfront price. My question is, how does that work if we were to call the bond in 2029? Do we have to pay that, or some of that amount off, or all of it, or how?
That's correct. And so you would ultimately pay the difference of the premium and the coupon, essentially. So
How do they figure that? I imagine they have a,
it's very complicated bond
real
math.
good calculator,
Thankfully, as an advisor, we have very talented financial analysts that are crunching the numbers on a daily basis, and so they make our jobs much easier. But that is.
but I mean, yeah, you're doing the present value of money and all this stuff, and
Exactly.
then
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah, you got it. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, that's what I, because I'm not a real keen financial person, as far as investments and that kind of thing. So when it says the rate is 5%, but the reoffering yield is 1.4%, is that when you're talking about the coupons and that kind of thing, the premium?
Exactly. And so you can see in those the earliest maturities where there's a very big spread between the coupon and the reoffering yield, that's where the premium has been priced the highest. So if you think of it kind of like a seesaw or a teeter-totter, bonds have a price, a coupon, and a yield. And so the higher the coupon never changes. The coupon is printed on the bonds, and that's the way it's going to stay until the bonds are retired, till they mature. So the only way you can make that coupon rise and fall is by adjusting the price of the bonds themselves. So if a coupon is at 5 and you're priced at par of 100, then they're going to yield 5. But if you price that above par, say 102 or 110, then the higher you're pricing that above par, the lower you're bringing down that yield, if that makes sense.
So basically, if you look at it, we were going for a $54 million bond, but we lowered it to 50 to offset the 5% interest is kind of the way that the teetering totter works.
Because an additional
They're
$4
paying
million in
upfront
premium was
money.
received.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
So the next attachment is the final sources and uses, and you can see there the just over 50 million, the 50,085,000 in par amount for the certificates issue. The additional sources here would be that just under 4 million of reoffering premium to bring a total sources to $54,051,809. Underwriter's discount, that's what Wells Fargo is paying themselves for making the market in this transaction at just over 368,000. Cost of issuance of 162, which leaves total deposit to the project construction fund for this project of 53,521,479. And then the final page in this packet here is the final debt service schedule that shows maturities beginning 12/1 of 2020 and final maturity 12/1 of 2045. And interest beginning there 12/1 of 2019.
I just, for board members, just so you realize that when we rewind back to April, and we were, before we even went to pass the general obligations, and we were going into it with the forecast of a of total interest of $32.1 million was the total interest at that time. We are now yielding 30.6. We've far surpassed what we were expecting with AA plus general obligation bonds by hundreds of thousands, actually millions of dollars. So I just wanted to point that out, that we are in so much of a better position that we could have even actually imagined possible. Even going back, like I said, 60 days ago in general obligation, so.
But if we did general obligation, it would even be better, yeah.
Well, not necessarily, because we had this conversation on Friday, based on what some other ones that were going general obligation were at the time, and you can we maybe would have been 2.89, 2.9 maybe, and even then, because really AA plus versus AA doesn't, from my understanding, it doesn't necessarily make you get a lower rate potentially.
That's correct, Chair. I would say the difference between even a AA, AA plus, AAA, any given day, that difference can be negligible. What we feel very strongly what happened here, and why I feel strongly, why I feel comfortable saying I think this priced very similarly to a AAA GO-backed security, is because the essential purpose of the facility, knowing that even though there is this ability for the county to not appropriate for the next fiscal year, knowing that this is the county's government center, there's no place else to go for the county once the county is in this government center. The rating agency treated it, as well as they could have treated it. They had to take one notch down because of that non-appropriation clause. That being said, they could have taken it 2 notches down. They could even have taken it 3 notches down, and they didn't. They rated this as strongly as they possibly could have rated it. And I believe the investment community, through the underwriters and their end investors, bought this as if it was a GO bond because of that the essential nature of the facility. And because of that, I think, again, any given day, this could have priced very similarly to anything else, rated as strongly or better, rated with the GO security, that we've sold.
No, Mr. Chair, I'm happy with how this turned out. Better than I thought it was going to be, which is, tells you about the strong balance sheet the county has and how we've been fiscally responsible in the eyes of those rating agencies and essential service, which this building is. I mean, the chance of us walking away is 0. And they had to take that into account. But good day for the citizens of Wright County as far as the rate goes and everything else on this. This is as good as we can expect to get.
And I will note, board members, from going from previous forecasting, and we were anticipating a total debt service of 11.2, which we will get because what we did move aside the money to pay off the 2012 A bonds in the next year. So that will basically that'll take off about another 175,000, bringing us to about 11.1 for total debt service once next year comes in. So we even were able to get our total debt service lower than what our top threshold was. So it shows 11.97, but because we haven't paid off the 2012 A yet, but that money is set aside to pay it cover that bond when callable next year. So.
And Mr. Chair, we'll have that discussion next year when it comes callable. We'll have that discussion which way to go on that.
Yep.
Because I know the interest rate on that is really low and we're making more money on the investments, so it's which way do we go here?
So
that covers the 2019 A packet. We'll very briefly touch on the 2019 B packet. So this is $6 million taxable certificates of participation. Again, separated from the 2019 A and taxable because of the FBI's use of the law enforcement training facility, as well as the FBI's contribution, the federal government's contribution to this project. So you can see here, same rating result. 3 bids were received on this. Low bid of 2.53, high bid of 2.97. Same type of situation here where pleasantly surprised to see that we got as close to 2.5 as we did. I think that I would have been very pleased with the 2.75 in that ballpark, even a 2.8 in that ballpark. So to achieve a 2.53, again, same type of factors involved. The market has a very strong demand for bonds right now. There's just not enough supply to meet the demand. The essential function of the facility, Wright County's strong credit quality, having its financial house in order, all of that. That all came to play here on another fantastic sale result. Interest difference here with a smaller bond issue. It's going to be smaller between the high bid and the low bid, but just over 167,000. Underwriter's discount was 53,000. TIC came in just below 253 after the slight adjustments were made. COI at 60,785, and this yields between 2% and 2.65%. Slightly higher yield because of the taxable nature of these certificates, although slightly lower overall TIC because it's a 10-year compared to a 25-year with the government center issue. UMB Bank will also be trustee and paying agent for this. Because of the shorter overall term of this issue, the call date will come quicker here. It will come December 1st, 2026 for the 2027 maturities and those following. Also a July 18th, 2019 closing date. That's the date that the county will receive proceeds from this sale. And you can see on the bid tab again here, Wells Fargo was the low bidder for this sale as well as the 2019A sale. Baird and SWBC round out the 2 and 3 bids on the tab. The next page is the sources and uses, which show no reoffering premium was actually received for this sale, and that's something that, again, I'd have to go back to our very smart financial analysts to get a deeper understanding of this, but for whatever reason, on taxable sales, we don't see premium bids, and on tax-exempt sales, we do see, a significant amount of premium. So for whatever reason, no premium, and that's why the par amount here is that flat $6 million, which we started with in the pre-sale estimates. After underwriter's discount is taken away, 60,000 COI is taken away, this project is left with $5,885,335 in deposit to the project construction fund. The next page is the final debt service schedule, and that shows the first maturity at 12/1/2020, final maturity at 12/1/2029. Interest begins here as well, 12/1/2019. And midway through the yield statistics, you can see true interest cost, final TIC of 2.5283%. And the last attachment in this packet is the final rating report received from S&P. You can see on page 1 of this that the 2019A issue is first, that received a AA stable rating, which is new. The taxable 2019B issue is next, that also received the AA stable rating, which is new. And as a part of this process, Standard & Poor's affirmed the county's long-term general obligation credit rating of AA+. As I had mentioned earlier in our discussion here this morning, S&P does have in their rating criteria the ability to notch COP ratings potentially 3 notches below the general obligation credit rating of a municipality. And where you might see that is in instances where, if the function of the facility is less than essential, if it's, say, one of the recent COP issues that had difficulty was in Kansas. It was a parking garage for a shopping mall. If it was, say, some sort of sports center complex or something, less than essential, then S&P might see the risk of, that municipality's ability to not appropriate for the next fiscal year, their ability to walk away, as maybe being higher. But with the county's financial, house being in order, the essential function of this facility, with everything being as tight as it is, they felt comfortable with just the single notch, which is the best possible outcome that could be obtained through this through this rating process.
Well,
That said, I'll yield to.
Chris, thank you. Yourself, Bruce, Ehlers in general, you guys have been fantastic to work with over the 12-plus months of conversations and different models and different scenarios, and it was amazing to see over the last year things got better and better and better, to even to the point where I honestly thought in April that it couldn't have got any better than at that time, and lo and behold, here we are. It's
You make your own luck and success in this. Good financial house in order, essential projects, part of the core function of government, and with whatever market volatility, whatever's out there in the world, people want these kind of investments because these are safe.
And if I could echo that sentiment, the professionalism of, Bob Hivla, his staff, Lee Kelly and his staff, to take a bond issue that, that the CIP approach, regrouping, this was all put together in maybe 2 weeks' time. And so, the amount of work that Bob and his team and Lee and his team put in, really, again, speaks to their professionalism, and that effort, having everything in order, is really, again, to both your points, what led to such fantastic results on the day of sale.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And because Bob's not here, let's give a little notation for Tammy Veit, the Chief Deputy, for that. Because she's here, let's give her, she works real hard, just that Bob's
Yes.
staff is phenomenal to
Absolutely.
start with. I just want to give her some credit.
She probably did most of the work anyway.
I just hope that everybody in the county realizes that this is a good day for all the citizens of the county. They're getting an investment in the county for the long term at the lowest possible price possible. I mean, this building will stand there for the next 60, hopefully 100 years, and will meet the needs of the county for a long, long time. And as a county board member, and I'm sure many of you will agree that we did right by the taxpayers in doing this at the right time right now and getting the interest rates that we needed. And now we just need to get the bidding to come in the same
Construction.
line. Yeah, the construction.
And Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to remind people a little bit of history, I used to be a realtor up in Sherburne County, and when they had moved the courthouse from downtown on the highway, they had people just going bananas. And then 2 years later, they're going, oh my gosh, this was the best thing we ever did. Some people are a little slow to get into the realization of the nuts and bolts on why we're doing this. But after the dust settles, then they're going to, oh, that was the right move to do. Sherburne County hasn't looked back. I mean, way back 20-some years ago, Wright County probably should have been thinking about that, but they didn't. We're thinking about it now, and these buildings are not built for today. They're built for 20 years from now, so we still can grow into them just fine. And then all our services will be on one campus. So there's going to be every efficiency you can possibly get is going to happen there because all these different departments are now in close proximity to each other.
And I just want to reiterate so that anybody out there, the public that maybe didn't catch it, so for the government center, the true interest cost is 2.95%, and for the law enforcement tactical center, the true interest cost is 2.53% is the bond rates for each of those. Because there's a lot of numbers thrown out there, I just wanted to make sure that those numbers were made clear for everybody to understand what we're
Yes,
actually
Mr.
paying for
Chair.
interest.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and that's the important numbers to say. We hit the market at the right time, and now just if the bids come in at the right time, like we've been fortunate with our last few buildings, we've been real fortunate of that. I mean, if they come in, we have done as good as we can with the cost associated with doing these projects. I mean, we couldn't hit the buttons any better. 2.9, and I get heat from some people because I say anything under 3% is essentially free money because construction cost index and everything else factored in, and some people don't like that word, but that's how I view it, and that's how I was raised and learned how to view these things. Under 3% is phenomenal to me. I was thinking that we'd be coming in at 3.1, 3.2 on this.
I agree. I thought it would be at least 3.1, so this is phenomenal.
That's what we built our models on, 3.1 and 3.2, and
Yep,
so.
we did.
Well, thank you, Chris.
Thank you much
Yes.
Thank you all.
for all your hard work.
Item B, 907, I think we're a little bit
Yeah.
behind 907. Jennifer Swick, Lutheran Social Services Housing Director. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Commissioners. I really appreciate your time this morning. I come before you to request a resolution on behalf of Lutheran Social Service. We're not asking for money, just like to make that known right off the bat. We are, as a part of some funding we have secured renewed funding from Minnesota Housing to provide services for people on the verge of experiencing homelessness or who are experiencing homelessness in this area, and to the tune of about $380,000 for the next 2 years to continue these services.
Now, is that from, for Wright County, the 380, or is that the total amount for all the counties?
It's the total amount for Stearns, Wright, Sherburne, and Benton.
388,000?
Well, technically 379 and some change.
379,
I have the
okay.
figure if you'd like
Benton, Wright,
to quote that specifically.
Sherburne.
And actually, that covers more than 2 years. They're changing their biennium. It will cover from July 1st of this year through September of 2021.
So that's going to be spread out over a 2-year time frame.
2+ years, yep. 2+ years because they want to reset their biennium to start September 1st, come 2021. So I have a little report on the services, the latest report that we have on how services have been going in this last biennium. And I'm here in lieu of Jamie Stampley. She's the senior director who directly oversees the programs for these counties. I myself directly oversee these programs for the northern region, Morrison, Todd, and Crow Wing. Yeah, we're excited to continue our services. You'll see a little bit of information on page 1 here, and I'm going to try to talk while I advance this report for the viewers in the audience here. And I'm sure there's some of this you can't see, but I'll just point out some highlights as we go. Wilder does a statewide point-in-time count survey every 3 years. They try to assess exactly how many people are experiencing homelessness, and they did that. This in 2018 was the last point in time count. So at the very bottom of the panel on the right, you'll see their statistic that homelessness from 2015 has grown from their estimation of 9,312 to 10,233, and that again is a statewide figure. So I like to share that for education purposes, we are the land of 10,000 lakes. We're also the land of around 10,000 people experiencing homelessness on any given night. Lutheran Social Service provides different services for these counties. This is the breakdown of the dollars spent toward the different counties for our central Minnesota efforts. We are located in Stearns County, it was fun to hear you guys talk about your consolidation of services in this new building. That's been Lutheran Social Services philosophy, is when we offer services, we do so in consort with other services that we offer. So in our Stearns location, people come in and can get help with financial assistance, and then they can learn that they can qualify for housing assistance. As I look at the figure and see that the bulk of services happen in Stearns, that is definitely a factor. That there's just a lot of walk-in traffic that happens at the location that spurs services being rendered more in that area. There are other factors too, I imagine, but that's one I'm aware of. Moving to the next slide. This next slide shows the different kind of services we offer. Prevention is definitely something we are working with families to help them stay where they are, if at all possible. That's what prevention services are about, catching families before they fall into the chaos of homelessness. On the on the left-hand side of the circle, you'll see the services that 37% of the work that we do are with houses that qualify for our rapid rehousing program. So they are houses that just need a little bit of help to bounce pretty quickly into their next situation. And then we have services specifically for families who are doubled up. 33% of our services are directed toward families who are doubled up, which is a real crisis for people when in our climate of very challenged affordable housing is very hard for people to find these days, and so they're often doubling up in apartments, which jeopardizes the safety and or the security, the housing security of the whole family, because they exceed the limit of the number of people, but they're often generously just trying to help house each other. That's what those services are directed toward, helping families that are precariously doubled up. So you'll see that we have a well-rounded portfolio of ways that we are reaching and approaching people in different, with different housing insecurities.
Now, is that just for the Sherburne, Benton, Stearns, and Wright?
Yes, all the statistics that you're seeing from here on out are specific to central Minnesota efforts in the counties you just mentioned.
But you don't have a breakdown on per county? I mean, is it?
No, the only breakdown I have for per county is the funds that the previous chart that we looked at. The rest is for the whole of the efforts.
It'd be interesting to find out how many of these people are actually being served. You know, are we talking 2 households or?
We'll see some more of those statistics, I think, as we go. And well, actually, you get to see them on the right. If you look at number of households served.
Yeah, but that's for the
Oh, for the whole
whole
of it.
area.
I see,
It'd be
specifically
interesting to find
for.
out how many are being served in Wright County.
Thank you, sorry to interrupt. I can follow up with my supervisor to see if we have that can be forwarded, and I can follow up with you on that if you like.
Yes, I'd appreciate that.
Concerns specific.
So are any of these households, so between the 33, the 29, and 27, are any of them in duplicate categories? So somebody could be counted as part of the 27 and part of the 29?
No, these are unduplicated. They have to, as a part of the processing for these programs, they are fitted into the best category for them. It's a good question, though.
So it's just interesting. So basically, just over 100 people or 100 households are served out of that 380,000 is kind of the general gist of it.
Yes, and please note that this report reflects the first year of this current biennium. So this reflects July of last year to, or not July of last year, July of the year before, to for 1 year. So these statistics are, we haven't finished our July report, basically.
So I could extrapolate potentially that it could be 220 households served out of the 380,000.
That would be a fair projection of how these stats are really reflective of the services provided. Thank you.
Just because otherwise you start delineating at the dollar per household, it seems really, it gets to be pretty high, so that's why I want to make sure I ask.
Yes, right. Exactly. And we are seeing it has increased quite a bit with landlords being able to ask for double, first and last month's rent plus a damage deposit. That it is more expensive to help people in crisis situation these days because of the lack of affordable housing. So,
What's the metrics of dilution for the grant dollars to the end user versus administrative costs within Lutheran Social Services? I'm guessing there's got to be a metrics as to how much of it can be actually used within internal operations.
I believe the grant that we've secured only allows us to spend 13% of our money toward, well, I'm talking about administration. That doesn't include salaries for the people doing the case managers and stuff. But administration-wise, we're only reimbursed for 13% of that. So if that's helpful. And it's one of the reasons why we continue to be funded, because I believe the Lutheran Social Service, I'm kind of new to the organization. I started in February, but I'm very proud to be a part of LSS Minnesota. I believe because we do have a reputation for using funds very conscientiously and with good governance. That's a good question. All right. The next slide shows how we have, it tells the story of how we are meeting the goals for different demographics. The blue column on the left reflects what the goals and estimations were made in conjunction with our funder, and then in the end, where we came out on that. So the story here is that we have some growth to do, obviously, when it comes to adult families, but that we have found a greater need than we anticipated for single adult households and youth families. So there's some recalibration for us to do with our funder in concert there that doesn't have striking implications for how money is spent. It's really it's really about using the information available to try to project as well as we can who we're going to serve. But in the end, the funders are on board with us kind of serving who comes to us if
What
if that
constitutes
changes.
a youth family versus an adult family? Just, I guess, is that somebody under 18 that has a child? Is that what it is?
That's exactly what
Okay.
it is, yep.
I just want to make sure.
Yep, it's a good question. All right, the next slide. So we offer the three kinds of services I mentioned. This slide addresses specifically the doubled up and rapid rehousing. I should have mentioned that the slide we just looked at a moment ago was focused on prevention, that dimension of service, and now keeping people in their homes. Now we're looking at the two programs that help when people are doubled up or who are actually experiencing homelessness. So you can see some statistics on the right there for the breakdown of the numbers, but the graph shows that we're actually pretty in tune with what the goals had been, if not exceeding. In fact, this particular area of dimension of service, we've exceeded the goals that we worked out with the funder at the beginning of the biennium a couple years ago.
Does Lutheran Social Services have a maximum benefit per individual or per household? I mean, is this, so basically they can't keep recycling through every 3 years?
Yes, there is, and I apologize, can't say what that is right off the top of my head, but for the vast majority of the people we work with, there's a tiered leveling of assistance. So at the beginning, they get maybe their full months, they get help getting somewhere, starting fresh somewhere with first and last and a down and damage deposit. And then maybe they get their first month's rent paid, just to give them that breathing room to really dig in and recreate their financial scene. But then the next month, it's 75% of their rent, or the next month it's half. It starts to level off toward self-sufficiency is always the goal.
Yeah, that's good.
The next slide shows some of the most, and the last slide, I should mention, shows some of the results of our work. The bottom right-hand stat at the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, I just want to highlight that the average number of days from the time someone applies for our services to the point that they're moving in is 23.93 days, so basically 24 days, which can sound like a lot, but I feel like for our staff, this is actually pretty commendable in the climate that we're in with the lack of affordable housing. Many of the people we serve get housing really because our staff have developed relationships with landlords who have willingness to look at people who have more unlawful detainers on their record than they might. Landlords can be very choosy today. And so a lot of it, I think this reflects a lot of hard work on our staff to try to get people housed as quickly as possible in a climate where there just is not enough affordable housing for everybody. And one of the greatest statistics too, I think, that I like to see anyway, is that the vast majority of our households are, by the funder's definition, stably housed when they leave our program. That's my report.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I think that, this is a great example for a hand up and helping people get out of a tough situation and enabling them to get into housing, because I spent 2 years working with the chronically homeless, mentally ill, chemically dependent population in St. Paul, and that's kind of a completely different population than the families and things you're serving, but certainly they all are in really crisis when they're going through these different situations, and sometimes just that one lost paycheck can put people in a bad situation. So I think that this is a good example of a hand up, especially when you're looking at the short time that people are in the program before they're essentially, getting more stabilized in their families. So I think it's a good program.
Commissioner Houston, I tell you, if anybody's ever worked in payroll and you've ever had a situation where you have to delay payroll a day or 2 days, that's when you realize how close
Yes.
keep their checkbooks.
Yep.
It's amazing that literally one paycheck or one wrong thing is enough to send somebody into foreclosure or out of their house.
Yep.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question, Jennifer, is is when we assumed this in 2015 from Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, their formula for grants, was it based on population? Was it based on need? Was it based on, what was the basis for the amount of the grant? Like, what was Wright County eligible for versus Benton or Stearns, is what I'm getting at. Because there's people out there that I know are going to ask me, why aren't you asking those questions?
Yes, that's a great question. I can get back to you on that. I regret I don't know that, how the funders direct the funds. And I don't know that they necessarily do, as much as we're responding to the calls that come in. But the vast majority of the services we provide are because of people calling or walking through our building and asking for services.
Where I'm going with this is, if this is like a block grant type thing, and they have criteria for that, you know, population, you know, age, all these different criterias that they have. I mean, where I'm going to get is, I'd have to imagine that with the amount of services that Stearns County is getting compared to us, are we in Wright County subsidizing our portion of a block grant to help subsidize Stearns County? Because that's the question that's going to come out of that graph right there. Because if we're partners in this, but they're assuming or consuming 63% of the whole budget, people have to, okay, they're not that much bigger than Wright County. What's the metrics here on what are we getting for a dollar? Are we actually being givers or takers on this thing?
That's a very fair question.
I would think we're givers.
Well, yeah,
And which is why I was curious to find out how many people are actually served. Because I know Wright County Community Action also has a function with some of the money they receive for prevention and emergency housing funds and that sort of stuff too.
Commissioner Dillon, I wonder if could Wright County Community Action apply for that same grant and offer the same services within Wright County?
I don't know. I don't know.
And thank you, Board. I just want to, Jamie Goodrum-Schwartz, Health and Human Services. And I'm just asking for support for LSS's position on this resolution to obtain the funds to provide the services that Jennifer's talking about. We do act in partnership with this program, and we have for years, and I agree that we'd like to, and I think the more that we participate, the more we can steer people in that direction in order to get more services into Wright County. And at this time, I just would like to ask that the board support this resolution so they can obtain the funds, so they can help the folks that live in Wright County.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Potter first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How time sensitive is this for the funding versus the questions we're asked trying to get answers?
They need, my understanding is, and I think what Jennifer and I talked about before this meeting, is that the mechanism for the funding is that they just found out a month ago whether or not they were in line to get the funding, and so that's why everything feels kind of rushed. Otherwise, we would have had this at our Health and Human Services Board earlier.
So is it time sensitive?
So it is time sensitive because July 1st, they have to have all 4 counties on board with the resolution in order for them to meet with their requirements for this funding to come through the.
Which is a change from last biennium. It used to be the case that we just had to be on the agenda of all the boards. But now they've asked that, just recently we found out that in the last couple of weeks, that they want all the resolutions in hand before they start to reimburse us for services that we provide starting July 1st.
Commissioner Burrell?
And my question, Jamie, I guess, if we didn't do this, and because what Commissioner Potter's talking about is they're basing an amount for this whole organization based on our population, our, whatever it is, that each county gets some contribution of this grant money. So if we didn't go with this organization, could we go with like community action or something like that and get our share of the money?
There would be no our share, so I think.
Would be no what?
There would be no our share because this is really their money to use for our total population, and I totally agree. We'd like to see more of the benefits coming in.
If it wasn't for
that
this
would serve.
organization,
I'm
how
not
would we
aware
get
of
the
others,
money?
but as we mentioned, we're still in line for the homelessness grant that we had talked about a while ago, and I'm dropping the name of that grant. So we're hoping that with that grant, if we do get it, we can partner better because we don't have a housing. Part of the issue too is Stearns County has, and their Health and Human Services, they have housing people. We have no housing person in our Health and Human Services to work specifically with this population, to have them, obtain some of these benefits. So I think we're kind of already in a situation that we potentially aren't able to capture as much of the funding as we would like to, just because we're not staffed that way. But I'm not aware of any other funding, but in light of that,
I'm
there
guessing
is.
there's another organization besides Lutheran Social Services that does this
So
function.
what happens, and this is my understanding of it from back when I was the manager upstairs here at our financial services, is that we're at the table with, and I always forget LTH, the Long-Term Housing Prevention Services. We're at the table with them with the other 3 counties, and we all work in tandem about, these are the clients that we're serving, and we see then at that time, how much we have left in our crisis funds and how we can all work together to help these same people. So even though our share of this funding isn't the same, we're all coming together to say, well, this group out of St. Cloud can help our folks get furniture for a new house they just moved into. So I think the part of it is that whole collaboration that we're all working with each other to help any of our clients that show up with these homelessness issues.
You're not answering my question, though.
I don't know if there's
not
another.
this organization,
We would
what?
just be, my understanding is we would be just down this money. We would not have access to it.
I'm unaware of any, if I may interject, I'm unaware of any other organizations that are tapping this particular fund or that are getting money from Minnesota Housing. And so in that regard, it might not
It's
be
from the
mutually
state
exclusive.
then, this year money?
Minnesota Housing.
It's not,
Chair.
there's nobody else we could go to then, as
Commissioner
far as I
Burrell?
know, to
Or
get it.
Commissioner Potter, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To answer Commissioner Burrell's question, Minnesota Housing Finance Agency does not say use this one or you don't get the money. That's not how they operate. We allowed them to assume that, get that money for us. You could, if Community Action has the capability, you have the power to say, we're going to go after those funds ourselves for community action, but that's not what we did in 2015. We assumed that authority to these people. But they're not the only one, and Minnesota Housing Finance Agency will never say either you use them or you don't get the money, because there's a whole bunch of legislators down there that'll have them on the carpet.
And Commissioner Potter is right on that. The only difference is that with Lutheran Social Services, you have the power of a regional partnership. So you tend to score higher, I guess if you use it from a scoring standpoint, that they like to see more joint efforts.
Collaboration.
So if Wright County Community Action, say, partnered with somebody in Meeker or McLeod County, and they were offering cross-county services, and we partnered together in that capacity, could we potentially apply for the same grant and have the same success? Yes.
I just think Commissioner DeLayden's question is a valid one, in that I see it in a whole bunch of other things too. Central Minnesota Council on Aging, the amount of money that's brought forth through Wright County does not come back to Wright County. It goes to different counties around that have whatever, more, I don't know, they just end up getting it. We're down at the bottom of that organization as far as geographically, and Stearns County ends up with a
Well, and
big share of that,
demographically, I
too.
think it does make a difference too. If you notice, Sherburne, and we're in like the same boat as Sherburne is, and they've got, 95,000 people in their county. And they touch Stearns, or they touch St. Cloud a little bit more, so that potentially makes up some of the difference. My only thing is, for us to access any of these for our people in Wright County is to have the types of services that Lutheran Social Services is doing on our behalf to steer them towards someone. And if not them, then it could potentially be county levy dollars, it could potentially be other dollars that we would have to access.
Well, that's for the
exactly.
things from the short term here. Had we had this conversation 6-8 weeks ago, we could have maybe pivoted and moved the funds to another location. But in the meantime, if we don't pass this resolution, we are going to basically put ourselves in a tight spot for the next biennium until we can apply, whether with them again or with another agency.
May I interject? It is not possible for anybody, the application for these funds is long gone. This is the
Exactly, that's
tail
where-
end of a process. But the theory of what you're saying,
years
I mean,
from
the
now we
impetus
could,
of what
but-
you're saying is true. You could now gear up for the next
In 2 years.
opportunity.
Application.
And if I may add one, what seems to me now a crucial piece of information. One of our sub-grantees, so we have funds that we use, but out of the 380,000 that we're going to use now, a chunk of that goes to TRICAP, which is an organization near us in St. Cloud. And I don't know that they serve, I don't know that one of their target populations
They don't serve Wright
is
County.
right.
They don't serve Wright County.
So maybe it's helpful to know, they get 40,000 a year. So out of this next chunk of biennium, they're going to get over 100,000. So there's 100,000 off the plate that's going to go specifically to Stearns, which wouldn't be accessible. So maybe adjust a little bit your figuring about.
So that 40,000 goes to TRICAP, which is Tri-Community Action Program. So we have a Wright County Community Action Program. Well, how much goes to them?
You could ask them whether they're not currently one of our sub-grantees, and I regret I don't know the history on how that all happens with that LSS.
That's where I think we're coming from. It's and Jamie, we need to start. If we need to start fighting for it, because we just sit there and we nod our heads and we go along and get along, and we end up getting the
short end of the stick.
So
that would be a nice way of saying it.
Just so you know, though, we do
The
work
hardest thing is
with,
we're a day late and a dollar short here. That's the problem where I'm like right now is you'll do more harm than good by not passing it. I mean, Commissioner Burrell and Commissioner Potter, I mean, I agree with what you're saying.
Okay, now, Mr. Chair.
I agree too.
To me, since the time sensitivity and the cycle and all this, I'm okay with this, but if this comes back and I don't get my questions answered, he doesn't get his questions answered, and he doesn't get his answered, it will be a no on this chair. Just to let you know, you're putting I need to know the breakdown of Wright County, what we're getting for this, what the block grant, how it is, how it works, all the little metrics within there to make sure that the citizens of Wright County that I represent are not having me get into something that you're paying out and not getting nothing in return for.
Well, I think there's sub-grant for WCCA, should be
Sub-grant, all
some
those little
conversations.
questions that we've been asking, these are things that I'm going to demand next time, otherwise it will be a no on this end of the table here.
And just so you know, we do work with community action all the time. So our financial workers, if someone presents, I don't have a place to stay or I'm getting evicted, we go to community action and we ask them, because we're the payer of last resort, and only after they've run through all of their housing funds, wherever the source is, and we've gone through all the other housing funds, would we approve any kind of crisis fund. So we're a good partner with community action. I just don't have any say over what they pursue as far as their funding and finances.
I just want to make sure that we get these opportunities in front of them so that they're realizing that, hey, we gave a bunch of money to Lutheran Social Services in St.
Absolutely.
Cloud, so TRICAP's getting some of that money, so I think WCCA should have.
I believe we've had
access
some
to
of
that
those
funds as well.
But I think
conversations.
this map, this one right here, this pie chart kind of shows it all.
So 10%, so $38,000.
Yep.
Well, first of all, I question your definition of a lot of money, but,
Well, it's not a lot of money, but I mean, it's still.
to do what much
If
we
you're buying or
need.
selling.
Yeah, but anyway, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for Lutheran Social Services to receive this grant.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dahlite and second by Commissioner Potter. Any further discussion? Hearing none,
I just would like that additional information, those breakdowns.
And I'm going to be a little firmer than him on that. I'm going to demand that information because I need to be accountable to my constituents on this one, because they'll want to know. When we're sitting at the lowest rate of poverty and all this other stuff here, then why are we paying in for something that maybe Stearns County is getting the lion's share of this, 63% of this? What are we getting out of this? What's going on? So that's my soapbox.
I mean, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Potter, just to clarify, we aren't paying in. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess at the state level, but we are not paying in for this grant.
Thank you for that clarification. This
We're
is
gonna-
just,
Yep,
I don't want to say, I'll say gravy. This is just money coming from another source that would help serve our population.
right,
But
exactly.
whatever,
we're just allocating Wright County share.
Gets
But
money from us.
That's such a lame argument though, Jamie. It'd be like, we get money from the state for highway funding too. So let's say we put it into this organization and now we get back 10% and a certain amount of that was allocated for Wright County. A certain amount of this money is allocated from Wright County.
Well, we don't know that yet, Charlie.
Well, you do. We don't know what it is, but we know that's how it's come up.
But-
And we're getting, we know, we can see we're getting about 10% of the spending out of it.
So I want a
But I'd
bigger
like to
cut
know how
on-
much it was allocated from Wright County that went into this.
I definitely want a bigger cut. I think it's fair and equitable for us to get a bigger cut, but this is, as you know, not only in this area, but everything is regionalization now, so we don't have as much clout saying Wright County wants this or Wright County wants that. It's always for the region, so I think our better operation is to go through Lutheran Social Services, through this program, to see what we can get back out of it, then try to do something that isn't available to us as a
But
single
I
county.
do, I do know. a
Send
way
more
that we
people
could-
up there.
I
Yeah.
do know a way that we could find out what contribution part of it from the state came from the Wright County formula by just voting no on this and then seeing how much of that 387 goes down.
Yeah, that's true, Commissioner Burrell, you could do it that way, but what I'm.
Be real
after is
accurate.
I just want the information so I can feel comfortable that what we're doing here is actually good for Wright County. I don't mind being good steward for the area because we'll have a lot of cross-jurisdictional issues coming up, but just want to make sure that we're not just subsidizing Stearns County over here when that, you say it's a block grant and we could get X amount of money here and we have community action that's fully capable of doing this. I just want to get some of these questions answered because I'm sure I'm going to get some calls on this one because this hits that certain segment of my district that'll say, what are we subsidizing that for? But again,
Are we the holdouts for this grant?
There are a couple other boards that are approving it as we speak today.
It probably didn't take as much time as.
You know, I appreciate that you guys are thinking deeply about it and asking good questions. I mean, you're an invested group of people and what's going on for your area. Everything you've asked is very legitimate in my estimation, and I'll look forward to getting back to you or having my supervisor report back on the questions you've raised.
Well, I know two people that we can just send up. I'll just send them, I'll drive them up to Stearns County and drop them off at Lutheran Social
There you go.
Services.
Help the population of St. Cloud.
And take care of them.
okay.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Oh, no, sorry, it's a resolution, sorry. After all the discussion, all right. I'll start it off. Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Resolution passes 4-1. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Okay. John Young?
Thank you, Jennifer.
Public Health, thank you.
Appreciate
Yeah.
your time, detail.
Absolutely.
We, for setting a date for a committee of the whole on the revision of the tobacco ordinance, including increasing the purchase age to 21. We have some recommended dates of July 9th and 16th.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Our office reached out to the cities of Annandale, Buffalo, and Howard Lake to see if they could attend a Committee of the Whole meeting to discuss the potential changes to the county tobacco ordinance. Buffalo indicated they will not attend the meeting, but will follow the lead of the county, and July 9th and 16th works for both Annandale and Howard Lake to meet.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
the 9th will work out better here. We have a public hearing on Lake John. We have a 11 a.m. Committee of the Whole. I have library board in the afternoon, so the 9th would be a much better date.
We have a public hearing on Lake John on July.
Do we have workshop on the 9th?
We don't have a board meeting on the 9th, so it's.
Oh, that's right.
You're
And we have
right, we have a
leadership on-
workship on the 9th, and that is also the quarterly leadership day.
Leadership at
Yeah.
10:30.
16th, I had noted as the Lake John public hearing.
Okay, that's what I say. I was thinking, I don't have it on the 9th. So, okay, so July 9th is,
Unless it was our, Mr. Chair, John, are you looking like for an afternoon perhaps meeting?
We
or-
talked to Susan, and it sounds like your Committee of the Wholes work the best after a board meeting.
so then we go for the
So
16th.
it'd be at 1 o'clock if you were to squeeze it in.
Right, we have an 11 o'clock committee of the whole on the 16th,
Yep.
So the 9th, we have no board meeting?
The workshop.
the workshop.
What time is it starting this, on the 9th, Lee?
The workshop, we had planned that for 9 o'clock due to the quarterly leadership at
There was supposed to
10:30.
be 10, but now we're doing everything at
Well,
9.
9.
No,
You get
it's a-
9 just because we end up having so much stuff to get done, it doesn't happen. So we have to go with the 9s.
Leadership at 10:30.
Yep, leadership's at 10:30, and that'll take us the whole morning. The 16th,
Make the call.
16th
1
at 1
o'clock would work,
o'clock?
but if it starts going too late, I'm going to be leaving, go library board, so just,
Either the 9th or the 16th at 1 o'clock works. for me, but-
I guess it doesn't matter to me. Either one's just as good as the other, so.
Both cities were open, so if you could just give me a time, and then we'll tell them.
Mike, do you have a
Make it
preference?
16th.
Should we go July 16th at 1 o'clock? July 16th at 1 o'clock.
Right here?
Chair,
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set a committee of the whole for July 16th at 1 o'clock for the purpose of discussion and revision to the tobacco ordinance, which is including increasing or increasing the purchase age to 21, excuse me.
I'll second
You want to
that.
decrease it to
Yeah,
15?
decrease it, yeah.
Meeting's right here, Mike?
What?
here.
Right, yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Potter,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Dahlheiden for July 16th in the county boardroom at
Surprised
1
you didn't
o'clock
cough
for the
on a
committee of the whole.
second. Me second.
Any other further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Committee of the whole scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tammy Vaith, Deputy Auditor Treasurer, here to
Chief Deputy.
rescind a resolution. That's a rarity.
Then
Morning,
approve
Mr. Chair and
one.
members of the
Yes, rescind and
board.
reprove.
Yes, I am here to request to rescind the Resolution 19-75, supporting Minnesota Department of Public Safety Deputy Register Reimbursement Grant Agreement that was passed last week on June 18th, 2019. DVS recalculated the grant amount when they became aware some certain types of electronic dealer transactions, the way that they were being recorded. And so the reimbursement amount is being decreased for Wright County in the amount of $20.28. And so we are asking to rescind the original resolution from last week and then approve a new one.
I'll make
Make
a
that
motion.
motion, sir.
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Hewsom, second by Commissioner Dahlheiden for rescinding the resolution 19-75. Any discussion? Hearing none. Commissioner Hewsom?
Aye.
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 All right, resolution rescinded.
Mine's kind of hollow because I wasn't here last week.
I'll make a motion to approve the new resolution. And kudos to the state for spending all this additional time on $20.28.
Motion by Commissioner Dahlheiden.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Potter. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Commissioner Dahlheiden?
Aye.
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 Aye. Resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All
Tammy.
right.
Thank you, Chief Deputy.
Mr. Virgil Hawkins. He's here to approve a jurisdictional change between the city of Buffalo regarding Cadler Avenue.
Calder.
Or Calder, sorry, not Cadler.
Morning, Chairman
Calder.
Vetch and Board of
Calder.
Commissioners. Yes, that's the first item. There's two items today.
Cadler's in the same.
Approved jurisdictional change agreement with the City of Buffalo, Calder Avenue and 134, so the city would take over former County Road 134, and this agreement would be effective after it's approved today.
I'll make a motion to approve the jurisdictional change agreement.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Dahlheiden, second by Commissioner Potter. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approves.
Okay, thank you. The second item is to approve funding agreement with the City of Delano for reconstruction of Highway 30, and they're taking the lead on this project. It would, construction would occur next year. That the city's approved the agreement, and a copy of it's in your packets.
And, Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion, and I do have some discussion.
Sure. All right,
I'll second that.
all right. We have a motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Hewsom. Commissioner Burrell?
And Virgil, this is, they're going to be doing something to help with the crosswalk traffic, like First Avenue there, where it goes over to that park on the south side, or
No, this project isn't,
it's not down that
this is
far?
west of
It's
that.
further out west, okay. But we haven't forgot about that one?
No, we haven't.
Okay, all right.
Well, they are actually working on it. I drove through there on last week, Wednesday, and they are already doing those bump outs by the ballpark and park there.
That might be, that's on the other side, though. Yeah, I'm talking about down by the Dairy Queen area,
Oh,
where it goes west.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought that, well, there was something there. That's been done a while ago.
Yeah,
some
but
bump
they're
outs.
looking at maybe doing some restriping for the pedestrians that cross.
Oh, okay. 'Cause
When
this
they-
was
When they
over
put
by
the
the-
turn lane in, they have the traffic right at the edge of the road, so it's a pretty long stretch to get. I went down there and I crossed it with a mom with her 3 little kids, and it was like all you could do to get the little ducklings across before you get run over, so.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner
I want to
Potter.
remind the public that this is another of our local option sales tax projects. You know, projects that probably be on hold until there's funding, but for the funding mechanism.
Okay. Any other discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agreement approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sean Riley, adopt resolution and findings for requiring an environmental assessment worksheet for Valley Paving Asphalt Plant, 14584 County Road 75, Silver Creek Township. This is a forward from, this is probably the fourth time where it's been on the agenda here this month.
Yes, Mr. Chair, County Board, this is a resolution consistent with your discussion from the last County Board meeting. To remind you, we had the public comment 2 weeks ago, and that was closed at that time. And so this resolution is consistent with the meetings
And, Mr.
up
Chair,
to this time.
because we were missing Commissioner Potter last time, I think it'd be an important part to this, but I'm going to make a motion that we do not accept the resolution today, and matter of fact, that we direct staff to draft findings consistent with not needing an environmental assessment workshop.
Second.
So you have a motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Potter, to draft a resolution to draft new findings for a resolution not requiring an EAW for Valley Paving Asphalt Plants. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Dell'Iden?
I actually spent some time this last weekend going over to the area, actually pulling up an EAW from the Minnesota website, and actually was able to answer a lot of those questions myself without having to do a lot of research. I think there's a number of questions on that EAW that really are easy to answer, that really aren't going to serve much purpose to those residents over there. PCA has pulled their concerns regarding the asphalt plants for requirements. So this is just strictly whether or not it meets it, and from what I can see and from what are the questions I answered on the EAW, I don't think this is necessary at this time.
I tell you, I'm saddened to see that the amount of staff time as well as individual time that has gone into this, that you've spent attorneys' time drafting a resolution in one direction only to come back and go the entire 180. Commissioner Potter, I understand you weren't here, and that makes totally respect that. There was 3 weeks that was open to ask questions.
It wouldn't have made any
get information.
difference last week anyway, though, because if it would have been a 2-2, it would have been back here anyway. It would have been the same thing.
It's but with the fact that we actually drafted findings.
Well, no, we wouldn't have drafted the findings. But Kreiser has to have something to do.
Once again, I mean, I guess I can clearly see that I'm not going to win this one, so I'm guessing we will be bringing this back then July 2nd with new findings to adopt a separate resolution then to approve findings to not require an EAW.
A negative declaration.
I would probably move then that we'd move it to, we have what's the fail date that we have to actually act on this?
We have till July 3rd
And Mr.
under
Chair,
the current process.
a reminder, I won't be here next Tuesday, but
So
I don't know
July
if that will
2nd, we're gonna,
I don't know if that would affect anything.
because we can't go past July 2nd anyways, because then basically it's, if we don't act on it, then it's dead anyways.
The state has allowances for, I think, further continuing an item the county board is considering. At this time, under our current way we're running it, the deadline is July 3rd.
I can't extend it to July 16th.
When our next board meeting is.
I guess I would have to ask for Mr. Chrysler's information to, whether I can extend it to beyond July 3rd to July 16th.
Right, so Greg's not available today. I'm going to have to make the assumption our 30 days.
I guess at this point, I would like to basically entertain that if.
Do we not meet on the 2nd?
We do meet on the 2nd, but,
What's wrong with that then?
You can, I mean, you can.
I'm basically want, if we've taken this much time, we'll put a little bit more time into it. So what I would say is I will be talking with Mr. Kreisler on what the ramifications and the time schedule is. I will put it at the discretion here of basically staff, if it can be delayed without any ramification to a vote, that we could be put to the 16th. If it can't, then we will be putting it on July 2nd.
I just wanted it on the 2nd, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, we need to be aware of statutes and time limitations for doing these things too, because sometimes those are sensitive in there. I don't know if that applies.
Well, that's where I was asking Mr. Kreisler, but he's not here available
Or
for.
whatever that number, you need to make a call one way or other, otherwise it's automatically okay. And
He was able to do this in a week. He can, they
Oh,
can do
yeah.
that next week.
Mr. Chair, there is
I
a
recom-
motion on the floor.
My recommendation
You want
is
you
if you're
calling
going
the
to make
question?
if you're going to make a motion to prepare a resolution to not require an EAW,
Okay,
it's July 2nd. If for whatever reason another issue comes up, that you can reevaluate that at that meeting.
Yeah, there is a
Mr.
motion.
Chair, I'll
on the
make a
floor.
motion,
There is our motion, there is a
I'm going
motion.
to make an amendment to my motion.
Yes.
To include that this will be brought back to the board for July 2nd.
Okay, and you're going to accept his amendment? Yep, Commissioner Potter accepts amendment. We'll have a resolution then for drafting findings for a resolution to deny, or not to require a EAW for
Well, we vote just on the amendment first.
no, well, you want to vote on the amendment? Are you rescinding your original motion?
No,
Amending your
I'm
original
not
motion?
rescinding anything. I'm adding an amendment
Yes,
to my
and he
motion.
accepted your amendment.
I've agreed to
He agreed to
your
amendment.
Commissioner Burrow, so that just
Oh, I
makes
see.
it part of
Yeah,
the
He accepted
motion.
your amendment.
Oh, got it,
Yeah.
okay.
So with that, any other further discussion? I clearly understand that I'm in the losing end of this one. I do value the amount of people that have put a lot of input into this, and
So clarification is that we're voting,
to draft new findings.
what about?
Resolution.
This resolution, unless there's a motion and a second,
It's to rescind this.
then we wouldn't be voting on this
Not
one.
require an EAW.
Yeah. So, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion
The
to,
resolution.
or is it a resolution? No, this is not, this is a motion to, we don't have new findings.
Okay.
Yep, we don't have new findings, so it'll be back on July 2nd. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Motion to draft new findings not requiring an EAW will come forward on July 2nd with a resolution to be done at that time. Yes, that's all.
Thank you.
Motion, yes, 3-2.
A quick break.
Yeah, we can take 5 minutes here, it's already been an hour and a half, so.
Or-
Mike, is it
It's just a
quick?
quick one.
We'll make it quick here.
It's just quick.
Morning, Commissioners.
Mike doesn't do anything quick.
I think this will be.
I tell you,
Scheduled for 15 minutes. so.
yeah, you know what, is this going to be a lot of discussion to it?
There shouldn't be. Basically, what I'm asking for is redirection of funds that were originally designated to be housed with the judicial district for the TURN. The TURN received a grant from the federal government for approximately $500,000 for housing, unless you want to talk about housing again. I will tell you, the money will be coming to Wright County, and it will be more than $38,000, but approximately $130,000 per year for participants in the TURN that are facing housing issues. But what's happened is the state cannot give out housing grants or those types of substantive grants to individuals through their process, and they've asked us to be the fiscal agent for the funds. And if, just a brief piece of history, 3 years ago when we received the grants, we were originally going to be the fiscal agent. The judicial district at that time decided to take it, so we kind of got out of it, although we are invoicing for all those services. And if you have any questions, Darnell Bretthorst, the coordinator for the TURN, is with me, but it's pretty straightforward. We'd become the fiscal agent for the money. I think it's simple, but that's me.
Yeah, I agree, and
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I will second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dahlheiden and a second by Commissioner Houston to receive the TURN funds grant, or TURN grant funds,
Be the fiscal agent.
be the fiscal agent. Any other discussion? No? Great deal. I tell you, I feel bad, administration put you way back in the line, Mike. I know you're start bringing them donuts so they like you better or something.
interesting.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. At this time, I'm going to just take a quick 5-minute
We're almost
recess.
done, though.
No, we're not. We're not even close. We're not even close. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene here at 10:38.
Good point.
We will be back to our 9:40 item. We're only about an hour behind. Mr. Alan Wilczek, Facilities Services Director, going to go over the Owners Committee minutes and the construction document cost estimate and release documents for bids.
Yeah, good morning, Board. I don't typically present the Owners Committee, but it kind of got lumped into one item. Do you want me to go through that? Or
Yeah, I'll let you go through it
All
since
right.
you're there.
So the Owners Committee on the Justice Center met on June 19th. Commissioners Burrell and Hewsome were there in attendance, as well as another large group of ownership, county department heads, et cetera. Mitch Paulson from Contegrity spoke to short-term schedule, progress on site, spoke to the progress on the exterior crews installing longboard siding up underneath the overhang, the west side of the building, area A. Framing's going in and wrapping up the roofing. Left on the roof is the Sally Port, Stair C, and the main entry. They'll continue that in July. Level 0, they're working on the interior block work for the secure hallway, the inmate transfer hallway, as well as some of the holding areas. About 50% complete on that. One elevator is currently installed, however not in operation. Needs a little bit of work around the openings, and then a temporary use inspection. Contractor activities mostly moved up to level 3 to get that area complete so we can start the courtroom finishes, since those take a significant amount of time. Then we'll move down to level 2 and finish A after that. Curry spoke to the budget and PRs, Kevin Curry with Contegrity, noting the remaining contingency of $1.531 million. Currently, security systems are being priced. Be back in the next couple of weeks. Proposals for pricing of commissioning on building facilities, equipment and infrastructure were reviewed, as well as PR 32. PR 32 is a change for approximately $20,000. It's in that packet as well on the agenda for electrical changes related to courtroom AV systems. Just a quick recap for you guys. The AV racking was split down the hallway into a different room, was moved into the courtroom to head off some potential issues that were experienced up at Sherburne County by shortening the runs and eliminating some equipment. So the commissioning service, as well as PR 32, were recommended to move forward with by this committee. Greg Kreiser asked about conference room scheduling devices and if they were included in this project. I stated that they're in the common use conference rooms level 1 and 0 next to the LEC, but not in specific department conference rooms. I had a little bit of discussion about that and their functionality and use. It was recommended that Lee Kelly be involved in that discussion with Mr. Kreiser and have a discussion to determine which rooms ultimately get those devices. Then as a whole, we had a discussion about building opening schedule and if we're going to do a grand opening or public opening ceremony of some sort, as well as a little bit of the timing on that. Are we going to do it before we open or after we move in and everybody's settled or what? So we kind of left it open-ended and we'll need to talk later on. So recommendations, our next meeting on 7/17 at 1 p.m. at the construction trailer, as well as the proceeding with Hallberg Engineering for commissioning service and approved PR 32.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and the recommendation.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple items here. A couple meetings ago, Judge McPherson had issues with that in custody hallway security issue where somebody, if they broke loose, could backdoor themselves into there. I don't know where that discussion went.
That's been resolved. She wanted a card reader on the stairwell B, which is the north stairwell. There were not card readers. It was meant to be not a public access point from the exterior, and it was an internal stairway basically for staff. However, her concern with the inmates, potentially if they got somehow through the secured door out of the inmate transfer hallway through master control, into the stairwell, that they would have the ability to get there, as well as if the jury deliberation group somebody went the wrong way and the bailiffs didn't see them walk past them and got into the stairwell, that they could get into staff areas. So it's been resolved by putting 2 card readers on those doors on levels 2 and 3.
Thank you. And the next one with the conference rooms, about that with the updated scheduling thing, and I was impressed. I was out at NACO when I was out in DC last week, and they put them in, they said it was a godsend. It's saved a lot of time, staff time in scheduling that. And if it's gonna go in the conference rooms but not in the departments, is the conduit in there, so if somewhere down the road they wanna do it, is the conduit in there, or can it be put in at a reasonable cost now versus later?
Well, kind of the interesting thing is there really isn't conduit in the wall because of the way the system would have to be fished in through the front of those conference rooms are glass with aluminum frame,
Okay.
basically, so we'd have to fish it in through there and punch through. And kind of to the point of the discussion, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but the common conference room, it's seen as everybody can share it. If you're in an area, you can grab it. You don't have to go to your computer. If it's in a department space, kind of the question is, you're going on your computer to reserve it, typically. You can also reserve it from the device. But it's just, is it a convenience thing that it makes sense to spend the money on? So we need to have a little bit further discussion on inside.
I wanted to talk to, because we kind of left it up to Lee, but I never got a chance to talk to you, but I agree with Commissioner Potter. I mean, it's $6,000. He's not asking for it for everything. It's for two rooms, and I think for that amount of money, and I know, Alan, I appreciate you being conservative with the money, don't get me wrong, but I think on this, I think when you go down the road, it makes it nice. I
Do it
guess.
right.
Yeah,
And Mr. Chair, after visiting NACO,
I'm not even sure
NACO
right
did
is the
theirs
right
after
word.
the fact,
yeah.
and they said it was a godsend for them to put these in there. The schedules, I mean, I have to look at somebody who's actually done it on a retro and say, we should have done it before, but the technology probably wasn't there when they did that, but they're happy they did it.
But Greg thought just the two rooms, and it'd be a total of $6,000.
So the second piece of that is the comment was made that the other departments want them too if they're getting them. So are we doing the whole
Well,
building?
they can come and talk to us and they can sell us into the benefit.
Well, it's the same argument that the attorney's office has. It's a convenience, so.
I haven't had any other departments talk to me about it, so I'm not.
I don't understand why you need them in those department areas.
No,
Because they're not going to be used by other departments.
No, but
Not by other
this in the court area though, some of them are very short, they're quick, like I need a place to meet with my constituent or their
Your
defendant
client.
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so they can do it real quick, whereas I think in another department, they're gonna know, a little more in advance.
I don't know if you've talked with any of them up there. It's a little bit different of an animal because they have, I guess, what is it, like ad hoc meetings because of the nature of the
Like,
work.
They get done with court, and this family has this issue, they need a place to talk. Well, instead of going back to the desk, I guess they could do it
They
on
go
their
up to
phone.
the attorney's
but
office.
They could,
So the one conference room that's getting it is on the opposite side of the public waiting area. So they're going to walk their constituents through the office to the other conference room to check the room to see if it's available on the device and then go back if it's not.
But they do actually meet with potential victims with attorneys up in the attorney's office, and that's where the.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So from the front waiting area, the conference room is on the east side of the building. So that's my question, and Kreiser's not here to speak to it, and that's kind of why it was deferred to have a discussion with Lee
right,
on it.
and that'd be a good discussion for them to have.
Well, yeah, I don't know if the board wants to step in here. I mean, I think I agree with all the points that Alan has made. My biggest concern is that is there truly need in all areas, and I would hate to have this be something that's maybe a little unnecessary in all areas. My discussion I did have with Kreiser is that I did agree to it in the attorney's area for these 2 conference rooms. I haven't been made aware of additional requests. I know for the admin space, I don't find it necessary, but I was hoping to limit it to just those 2 conference rooms in a department if possible, other than the public areas, so.
And it's not something that cannot be added later, it's just now is the time. If you're gonna do it, now is the time.
Yeah.
To plan for it.
And I think, I mean, we'll know a lot more information over it after, because this building will be open for a year before, do we even find out how much utilization in the internal department is before the next building opens up to find out whether it was a good investment or not, so. It's a good test.
Okay, well,
Yep.
thank you for that point.
Yep.
Whichever way the mop flops on that, I'm okay.
Well, I
with
think
it. Just make a
you've
point.
already got it.
Yeah, I just
gotta
haven't had
figure
an
it out.
opportunity to circle back with Alan and his group.
The last point here, Mr. Chair, and for Alan, the grand opening, Sherburne County did it just prior to them actually holding court, which it seemed like they tossed that one around quite a bit, and they decided that was the best way to do it, just before they actually have court hearings in there because of the disruption and what have you. Because I know with Monica and the scheduling of everything gets a little bit helter-skelter, especially going into a new building. So just before the open would be my preference for a grand opening.
And one other thing too, I think you mentioned the change, the amount of money left in the contingency fund, that you might want to speak to that because it looks like it's a really big amount, but it probably will.
So just a quick point on that, for Commissioner Bill's request. The 1.513, I think, was the number on the contingency. It's a little bit misleading in that we are not going to end with that kind of money. We have currently a PR out for site work. If you recall, the Justice Center site was completely different than the Government Center site. We spoke to that a little bit here, I don't know, a couple months back in planning for the GC. The PR is going to be eaten up by a fairly significant expense to redo the site to match the new plans that are not rolled into the Government Center. Basically, there's earthwork, site lighting, concrete, asphalt, et cetera. The site has changed on the west side. So the roughly 1.5 million in contingency is not going to be that when we're done, but we'll have some meetings and cost presentations on the PR. Currently, the earthwork is out for pricing. Once we get that back and work through that, then we'll bring that in front of you for review.
Okay.
So I know we had a talk before, and more than likely with the tying with this, a couple $100,000 to possibly $500,000, but that's it. It's not going to be much higher than that.
It'll be somewhere around that.
Somewhere, 2
We're
to 5.
working through that. It's kind of, which will also reduce a little bit of the scope on the Government Center side, so.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion, we approve the Owners Committee minutes and recommendations.
Did we do that already?
Yeah,
You already had a motion and a second.
Oh, we have? Mr.
Yep.
Chair, motion and second's been made.
Commissioner Dahl. Commissioner Dahl,
I don't know, did we vote on it?
No, we haven't.
we haven't voted on it, but we did a motion and a second.
Who did it?
That's just the minutes. I did the
You did,
motion.
Charlie.
Butter and
You
some second.
seconded it.
I'm going to turn my hearing aids on.
I'm just kind of curious on why we're changing hardware to Southern Steel and security hardware change in January, and now last November, we changed everything from Yale Hardware to Sargent Hardware.
So the difference is the Sargent is typical office hardware that you see around the building. Southern Steel is jail security hardware. So that's on the jail cell doors.
So we didn't know what we were going to have before?
Yes and no. For open bid purposes, it was bid as alternatives to look at. We selected those bids, and then through some of the process of working through the actual functionality and consistency, it was an alternate change, I guess, to go to a consistent product that we currently have.
So are we going to spec that in the next building? So that it,
Need to work through with the attorney's office on potential options to do that.
And Captain O'Malley was at these meetings about that hardware and all that, so it was tied in with.
Well, that makes sense.
We actually have, that's actually an open item that I've been working through with Alan, and we've been talking with the attorney's office on. If we do spec a sole sourced type of hardware on the government center, the question is, we need a letter from the county attorney's office to do that, because then it basically closes down the bids to say only basically one manufacturer can bid that project. The issue, as Alan was mentioning, is if we open it up, then we end up with the county having the possibility of getting a different type of hardware than they would have to service. So it gives us great open bids. On the Justice Center project, we had the opportunity with the manufacturer who's supplying it to change to the manufacturer the county would prefer, and we did that. So if we do sole source it on the government center, we can do that. We just need a letter from the county attorney, and we're going to get some complaints from bidders about the fact that we're closing it down to only one manufacturer. So it's a possibility. I mean, that'd be the preference. It would clean everything up. It's just probably going to increase bid.
For that item is going to be higher because there's no competitive to the market. But I guess it's, to me, is how much is the benefit to the staff having uniform? I don't know.
And if they know that that's going to get changed anyway, because history has proven that it will, they can throw in a cheap number and then come in with whatever they want later.
Yeah.
And that's somewhat of the cost benefit analysis, is to say, is it worth bidding it openly and then saying, what is our number that we're going to get after the fact? So.
In a situation where a county does have multiple buildings and utilizes a certain hardware and then multiple buildings, doing sole source can be very common.
The other alternate that Alan and I have been talking about is actually putting an alternate into the project to say, we're keeping this open bid situation, but please give us a number for if we did change to the county's preferred hardware.
That would make more sense.
That would make more sense. I agree with you,
Then we
Commissioner
have
Vella.
that number up front, and we say we still have an open bid situation, but we're being upfront about that.
Well, then I know what my contingency cost is going to be to have the uniform, so.
Correct.
Right up front.
So that's the other option, rather than having to,
Correct.
go
I
source.
just want to remind the rest of the board that this issue did come back up in November, and Captain O'Malley was at the table, and which direction matches everything you do. And that's when it was, okay, we got to change stuff to match this, otherwise he's got a full mid of keys like this. And you want to make it a little bit simpler and more consistent.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then one other question I have is that, will we remember on the new government center to put drains in the mechanical rooms instead of having to do change orders?
Yes, we have had quite a lot of coordination with Alan on exactly about placement of some of those drains in mechanical rooms. So, yes, there was a little bit of lack of drainage coordination on the Justice Center, but Government Center, I think we are covered.
They were there, just needed to be moved, basically.
Just not really in the right spots, so.
So, well, never mind.
But yes, for sure.
All right, any other discussion on the Owners Committee minutes and change orders and recommendations? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Owners Committee minutes and change orders, recommendations are approved. Construction document cost estimate.
Yeah, so we have Contiguity Group, Pete and Larry, as well as Bruce and Anthony with BKV, and Pete's gonna take it, I think, from here and kind of run with the CD cost estimate, speak to where we're at, and kind of give an idea where that's coming in currently. And then the last piece, so then after review, that will be to look to get approval to release the documents for bid.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you know, we completed the CD estimate based on the 75% CD drawings received. We worked through the entire estimate, and you have a summary page, kind of the bottom line of where things are sitting right now. I'll just kind of walk ourselves from the top down. As you know, we take off the different divisions of work, and as the plans progress themselves from schematic design to design development, and then eventually the contract documents, more and more detail is added in. So we start to totally refine these numbers as we move forward. So small things come up. Concrete, for instance, went down. Masonry went up. You start to go back and look, and it's nice to have that track record of kind of where things have evolved themselves. A good chunk of that was in the face of the front elevators. Those walls were changed to block, which made sense. Now we can set the frames after the fact instead of pouring all four sides. So those are the kind of things that we work back and forth through as we make our way down. At the same time, we encompassed a little bit more square footage from the DD estimate, a couple thousand square feet. Mainly the driving factor was when the change was made from the tuck under garage to more storage-based space. Some of the HVAC requirements increased the building in order to encompass that conditioned space now. Working through the most notable changes, Alan alluded to a little bit earlier, we're down in the site work portions, which would be category 31, 32, and 33. Since the PR portion for the earthwork is out, we were able to encompass some savings there, knowing it's going to get priced right now with the Justice Center. The exterior improvements in the utility portion were reduced. We're still waiting for those PR drawings, but at the end of the day, we'll shake those numbers out when the pricing comes through. If you look at the subtotal of construction, for the most part, we're still seeing, for the most part, the same project. Granted, some funds shifted around in some of those different divisions of work, but at the end of the day, the trade contractor total, we're sitting right around that 40 million mark. So with that, I'll address any questions before I move down on the estimate sheet.
No, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I like the fact that we did move forward with this, and we're going to have some savings because you can do all that dirt work for the admin building along with the Justice Center now versus wait a year and come back and then have these higher expenses. So we're getting a little bit extra savings besides the 2.95 on the bond. So those are nice things to do to make it continuous, because no matter what we do, we got to build that parking lot. You might as well have it shaped with the anticipation there, and I do applaud and thank you for getting these numbers and knowing what they were going to be coming ahead of time.
You're welcome. Moving down, like I said, we have the general conditions, the building permit, some of those other items that really haven't changed a whole lot through the course. We did take that design and bid contingency out back in schematic design. Cooperatively with BKV, we looked at that entire job and knowing what we had plugged in that SD number. The middle part, fees have pretty much represented the value of the construction side of things. Then we drop down into some of the owner items where some of these numbers have evolved themselves since the design development estimate. We did plug in that building AV allowance, and I think a lot of that was driven from the tours you took from other facilities and some of the efficiencies that can be garnered by putting those systems in, similar to what we just talked about with the conference rooms. Cell phone PA allowance, this is something we're looking into right now for the Justice Center project, so we thought it would do due diligence to plug those numbers in currently on this project as well. Playground equipment, threw a little bit of allowance in for the playground equipment
I know.
for some of the need of Health and Human Services. The internal IT infrastructure, if you remember way back when, I knew Adam was working on some numbers early on, and when we came through with the SD and DD estimate, there were some changes in that department, but we met with Pat here a couple weeks back and thought, let's do our due diligence once again, throw an allotment in based kind of what we have on the Justice Center. That number still will be worked because you have some existing equipment that could potentially be relocated over there from here. How that change takes over, you've got a couple budget cycles to go through before that's operational and up and running. But at least at the same time, we wanted to put a number in there so everybody was cognizant of the fact that there are some costs in order to get IT from here when the time comes for the move. Outside of that, security electronics and signage basically stayed in check. Base project total right now is 54 million if the owner items stay in place the way they currently are. Down below, we've got some unit pricing and a few alternates. The unit pricing, export some of the stock topsoil. You're flush with black dirt out there, and we're going to put a unit price in to haul that out, whether it's over to your tactical range site or where have you. We're going to get a price per cubic yard, so we have a place to put it.
Wouldn't we put there's got to be places that would love to have that black dirt that would be willing to pay for it.
Or at least truck it.
Or at least truck it.
You know, with the Justice Center project, we stockpiled some on that north pond, more of a berm fashion, not such a big stockpile. It's something we're going to talk about after the meeting today a little bit further on how we encompass that and actually what the quantity we're looking at exporting and the end spot for that.
And Pete, we have that other property, I don't know if you've looked at that at all, you know. storing it or whatever.
No, the Bremer property, that's just nothing goes over there till later, but with the black dirt, like we had talked about that a long time back is, you know, if we have cities or townships within the county that can use that stuff, and if we're exporting at the same time, get the truck in line with the rest of them.
Or the county could be hauling it to different locations. I mean, they're using it, they're needing it once in a while.
Right, but I think the park was pretty
Store it.
full on black dirt and that, but I think they all know it's there, it's just a matter of re-energizing the people, let them know it's there. So if we have townships that say, hey, we go through like 4 loads of black dirt a year, we'd like to have our truck going over there for a while and get some for projects, fine.
Mark, maybe you should check with Parks though for Bertram, because that's pretty sandy up there. They might want some black dirt.
It's to be determined, and we'll discuss that.
Well, it's not it's kind of sandy soil over by the jail too, but where is it stockpiled right now?
Southwest corner.
Currently, it's just to the outside of where our job trailer's at. You'll see that mound sitting there.
So that's the dirt you're gonna move?
Yep. At the same time, I know with this PR that we've got out for pricing, there's some additional black dirt there that we're gonna have to figure out what to do as well. But
Part of that black dirt came from the highway building. That's where they they had a little bit of black dirt. That's where they put it over there, along with the Justice Center, so it all got put out of the way for the moment.
I still can't believe that we couldn't get somebody willing to haul it away for free.
Outside of that, we have 3 alternates. We're going to delete the concrete slab in the shelled space. We identified a number for that. That exterior covered secure parking, the 42 stalls, and then the fire pump, which you already have included above. It's just a matter of whether or not when the fire sprinkler contractor's brought on board, if the calculations are such where a fire pump is needed to aid in putting enough pressure up on the upper floors of the facility, whether or not it'll be needed.
So we decided to take the alternate out of underground parking then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's out.
Yep.
You know, the thing is, and I think because of the limitations with the underground parking, how many stalls are available,
Right.
and I think the 42 more mirrors the fleet, which makes more sense that they're all in one spot. I mean,
Yeah.
so either way, we got to do something with the fleet parking anyway, and it's good that they're all in one spot.
Yeah, and this is something we can always do later. with that.
Yeah, because whether it's not, yep,
Right.
Weather's gonna be weather.
yep. All right.
Any further questions on the
No.
estimate?
No, it's
Good. Looks like you guys did your diligence on it, so I feel very comfortable with what you guys are put together for parameters.
Our next goal now is to aggressively market this. We're looking for permission today to send this out for bid. Kind of the schedule we're looking at is to send them out next week. We will advertise in next Wednesday's paper for the 3 consecutive times with our hopes of a bid opening August 1st. And then bring those bid results back to the county board, I think it's the 13th. At the same time, I believe that first meeting in August, you have a work session, and we should have a snapshot of where it's at, even though we won't have all the contractors qualified by that time. But that's the blessing we're looking forward for approval from you guys this morning.
So will we be having a board meeting on the 13th, Mr. Kelly?
Right now, it's slated as a workshop day.
Right.
Just curious if, I mean, we don't want to push all the way to the 20th, or do we just kind of plan on having a board meeting on the 13th?
Whatever, short one. but
We
you
could
got
have a short one.
You got time to deal with that.
Address just this one issue deal if we
Yeah.
had to.
Well, Mr. Chair, I have Committee of the Whole for Health Insurance.
Yes.
Um,
On that third,
It's on, unless I wrote it in wrong, on August 13th at 9 a.m. and then the workshop at 10. So
correct.
if that could be something that we could address at the same time.
Well, we can't really do it, we have to have a board meeting to actually accept the bids.
Right.
Yep, so.
Yeah.
No. So you're looking for a motion to move forward on this release documents for bid? Is that what we're looking for, Brian? Okay, I'll make a motion to release the documents for bid on the Wright County Government Admin Building.
We have a motion by Commissioner Potter,
I will second that.
second by Commissioner Hewsome for the release of the bids on the Government Center. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Dowling?
So what is the plan? If you're going out for bids now, chances are you won't have the tip-ups available in this construction timeframe. So you'd be dealing with it next spring for the tip-ups, or would you fight the winter weather for it?
Well, the superstructure on this building is very similar to the Justice Center in the fact that, for the most part, footings and foundations will be going in throughout the course of the winter. A little more challenging, but we can do it. We've done it many places in the past. At the same time, after that, we have a steel structure going in where the tilt-up precast is more of an exterior envelope covering. So from that standpoint, I don't think it'll hinder construction, and I mean, winter always does with the concrete and things of that nature, but once we get past that, these steel erectors are used to working year-round. So precast, once again, right now is about 14 weeks out after approval of shop drawings. So yeah, we're going to be past the first of the year and maybe hold off until that springtime by the time we get through that portion of it.
But now with doing concrete in the winter, there's additional costs for heating and stuff.
Yes, there would be some additional heat costs to keep that tempered. What we have seen and that's why we'll get jumping on this as soon as possible, get the excavation, get as many of those piers. Kevin from our office, in concert with the structural engineer from BKV, worked on changing the piers now to 4 foot in depth, so hopefully we can run those in fairly quick, bury them with 4 foot of soil, and our exposure then is much less as far as heating those throughout the course of the winter and keeping them from heaving.
The concrete itself is more expensive though too, is they have, the concrete, they add heat to it and all.
Yes, everything across the board becomes a little bit more expensive. The nice part is though, in some of the contractors we reached out to, the bidding right now is still fairly aggressive. A lot of these guys don't have a lot of backlog going into winter time. And, you know, there was some talk in the area of the tariffs and how some of that affect material, but some of the contractors we talked to said they're still aggressively bidding work, which is kind of nice to see.
So I'm guessing the low workload in the winter kind of offsets some of the heating cost increases, I mean, to a certain degree.
It is, and the nice part about it is competition starts to drive some of those numbers down as well.
So, and Pete, for 14 weeks for the panels, but sometimes I've seen as long as 18, sometimes as quick as 10 weeks. It all depends on where you're at in the queue with them and what's going on and what goes up. And I know a lot of people that do the Fabcon, the old Spancrete now, whatever that name is, the company now, they all change. They do these tip-ups all winter long.
Yep.
I mean, and that's the beauty. I know when we did when I was mayor, and just after I was done with being mayor, we did our fire hall. The tip-ups were actually cheaper to put up in the winter than try to do in block work because the cost savings and the energy savings it was just no brain, you got to do this way. So, you know, and if we happen to hit the queue, if Fabcon says they can get them done in 10 weeks after the try, I mean, more power to us if it works in the schedule along with weather and everything else.
Do you have the tip-ups put in under masonry or under concrete?
They were under the concrete section. Yep.
So all the concrete is lumped together?
The poured concrete and the precast.
And then what is masonry?
Masonry is the block work. Block, exterior brick or stone that we have on the buildings. The rebar that goes in the masonry, the setting of those frames that are in the masonry walls. And
like on the Justice Center, the steps, entry steps going in would be part of masonry, not concrete.
elevator shafts at the Justice Center.
Elevator shaft.
For the most part, they couldn't pick up the shear on this building, so for the most part, those elevator towers, 3 sides of them are poured concrete in order to pick up the shear loading, which basically is the force of wind blowing against the building. They need to pick that up structurally. No different than you see in your house.
So you're looking at, basically, if we set the bids on August 20th, you're looking at about a 24-month construction period, roughly?
At this point, that's what we kind of have slated. Gives a little bit of time, too, for some of these owner items to get put in that a lot of times gets forgotten about in the mix. We are put a general milestone schedule together, and with the Justice Center project, we put an overall construction schedule together once everybody's on board. We do a 3-week look-ahead schedule every other week at the job meeting. At the same time, then, too, we track the overall schedule and make any changes that are necessary. But in the case of the Justice Center right now, we're tracking fairly close to where we were.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
And
Commissioner
this thing
Potter.
here is, when we assemble the owners committee for this building, I know I've been on the other ones, and if somebody wants to be on there, they're welcome to it. I'll take a step back. I like being on it because I like being engaged in these things because I get a little experience there. But if somebody else really wants to be on this one because they want to see the nuts and bolts, and I hope Commissioner Houston got a lot of information last week when I was gone, when you went today. It's just interesting how you can explain what's going on this to the public that probably doesn't know how these things are assembled and from get to A to Z, what you got to do. So that's open for anybody that wants to.
My slot's open. I think it should be somebody that voted for the building.
I'm going to make my play that I'm going to want to be on the owners committee on this building, so I've put a great deal of effort into it, so.
Commissioner Burrell, you voted for the Delano project, but you voted against the funding mechanism to it, so I was like, okay.
Mike, you didn't have to bring that up.
Yeah, I did. I had a salt in the wound type thing, you know? But no, it's all good. We're, like I say, the numbers impress, and I do just want to make a shout out, you know, BKB, you've done a great job for us. You know, Justice Center and this building, people were listened to. They might not agree with everything, but they've been listened to. And Contegrity Group, I mean, I just.
They have integrity.
Yeah, Contegrity Group, yeah. You just can't say enough praises. Really good to see a company that acts like it's their dollar that these people are trying to take away and really fighting hard for us, and I really do appreciate that. And hopefully the public, when they understand this, you're our manager, you're great.
Thank you. We're just part of a good team here with everybody.
Checks in the mail, right, Pete?
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'm probably just abstain. I'm not going to vote against it.
Okay, all right.
I just can't get it yet that we're really doing this.
All right, we have I guess that's one step in our direction, I guess, is an abstention, so. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4 with a 1 abstention. So we'll be looking forward to hearing from you guys in somewhere in August then with the information, so.
One last thing, just want to bring Anthony up here for a minute. There were a couple board options that we had kind of tossed around. We still have a placeholder right now in the estimate to encompass that, and I think Anthony wants to show you a couple options of that out.
So we talked a lot about the boardroom design, and we had Contegrity actually price some things up, and we want to make sure we have final direction on where we end up with particularly with the back of the boardroom, as far as that back wall. So when it comes to this, you know, this is where we landed with the boardroom. This was the direction we were given. We talked a lot about the exact IT that was going in the boardroom, exactly what the design was going to be. Where we left the back of the boardroom was basically this design. You directed us to change the entire back of the boardroom to be glass, so that you could have a clear view from inside the boardroom into that adjacent space. So this is the view from that adjacent space looking back into the boardroom. Now, a couple of questions we had. Staff, as we met with various departments, so this is looking into the boardroom again to the front. As we met with various staff members and various departments, there were some questions about whether or not that was still going to be an operable partition. Now, our direction from the board was to make that a full glass partition. The question that we had from various departments as we met with them was, is it still going to be able to be opened up? So I know the direction was no, but what we wanted to come back to you with was, are there options to still make that able to be opened up and still accomplish the full glass look that you were talking about?
How could you do that?
With double doors on each side of it, I mean, if you open those up, I mean, do you really need?
So here's the possibilities. So one possibility is if you took this entire partition and you made it into an operable piece that would still have the doors on either side, but in the event that you did actually want to open it up, these panels, you can see these panels sort of here, could tuck back to the sides and they just have a top track. So they have a top track and can tuck back to the sides.
I guess that's not bad.
That's not such a
I guess I
bad
didn't think about that option.
Yeah,
So
How do you feel about it, Alan?
I went and visited a location that had this exact installation to see if it was a viable option. We wanted to get some pricing, we talked to some product reps. The cost difference on this versus what Contegrity has in the price right now is probably about $40,000 difference in cost. So it's
Cheaper,
not,
huh?
it's more expensive. It's obviously not nothing, but it's not an enormous amount. There's an alternate option that we'd also looked at that staff had actually seen, and we priced up with some product reps, if my cursor will work.
What's staff's suggestion or idea on why they would like to see that done?
Well, there was concern from some departments about just being able to truly open that up again.
Well, and I guess my concern, I'm not sure where we fell on this was human services, but we were hoping for like a large area which would not accommodate all of our staff, and so if we did a training, we wouldn't have to always potentially do 2 trainings if we could have a large enough staff or a large enough space that we could congregate the majority of our staff. But saying that, I'm not sure what the density is for either without the boardroom or altogether.
Altogether, it'd be approximately 170 people.
Between the boardroom and all 3 conference rooms?
Between the boardroom and the second conference.
Okay, yeah, because if you opened up the whole thing, you're talking like 300 people.
So then what about those 3 conference rooms that are out in the handout?
On their own, they're about 150. So the second option, and Alan might have something to say here as well, but second option was you wouldn't be able to do the entire space with the doors, but just the space between the doors. You would be able to open up with a system that's more electronic, like this, that you could fold up into the ceiling itself. So that would be more like just, the other one is more manual, where someone would have to actually come and, open it up and push the panels back. This one would be more electronic, where you just touch a button and the whole thing would come.
And this is going to be much more expensive yet.
Yeah, and
This is significantly more expensive.
and I don't really
So we
care.
can make it the garage look so we can have car shows in there.
But the difference with this is that it would be able to be integrated into the overall control system for the boardroom. So you could say, from admin, they could just touch a button and everything would be controlled. Whereas the other one would be
No,
more.
Lee needs the exercise, so
So
no,
I guess,
absolutely not.
Jamie, if you had, I mean, the 3 conference rooms is 150. Do you foresee needing to connect into the board ever really that often to needing the full 300?
Well, I mean, it would be fantastic, because right now we're sitting at 240, so we've got off-site, and as you know, we haven't been able to congregate all of our staff in the last 20 years except for one time, so. But now we're going to be in one building, so that will help. I mean, we do a lot of training, and when we train, we hire speakers to come in, and we pay the speakers for their time, and we typically always have to do it in 2 groups. At 150, we might still have to do 2 groups. At 200, I could probably.
I think for the few times.
I would like to remind the board also of our employee recognition. That's gotten quite large.
Well, to be clear, Human Services is not the staff I'm talking about who specifically asked about this.
I don't remember weighing in on it, but I remember that we're.
Planning and Zoning was definitely interested in it.
I guess that's what I wanted to know, if there was multiple departments that had interest
Yeah,
in it.
Planning and Zoning definitely had some concerns, admin had some concerns, Human Services is not the specific department, but, we did, specifically from admin who's trying to think of everything holistically about, how would this room get used in multiple ways, that's where some of this comes from.
I think part of the question, if I can just speak to, when you've got this, look at the meeting we had here when we set all the chairs outside. Now, granted, we didn't use them, however, it'd be somewhat similar in that you would say, if this room is full, we've got a meeting full of people in here, we're gonna say, you need to go in the other room and you can watch it through the window. It'd be like putting people out there and say, watch it through the window. If you wanna talk, you can come around, come in the door and speak up here.
No,
It doesn't seem to be real practical, or if you make it immovable, most of the time, yes, it's going to be staff go back there, it's closed off, and that's all good. But in that event that we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever amount of meetings, you don't push your public in the other room and say, go watch it on TV, and then through the glass, and then you can come in here and you wanna talk.
No, I think it's.
Mr. Chair,
worth it.
I think, like, planning and zoning is a classic example of when you really, get a lot of public, and it'd be nice to include them in the same room, essentially, as the the main meeting is going on, so.
And it might not be that many, but in the case that it does happen,
Well, just for training even, I mean,
Yeah.
we're not talking a lot, I think, time to move on.
Does that make
Yep.
sense? Okay.
Yeah, because
One last question about doors. I know we talked about pairs of doors on either side. If we're gonna have the doors on a hold open and we are gonna move ahead with this movable partition, would it make sense just have one door on either side and have the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
movable?
Yep.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was,
Yeah.
okay, and then
Or
last,
even one door on one side and be
Yeah.
able
Yeah.
to move it all the way. I'll leave that.
Either way.
I'll leave it at you guys, yeah, they're the experts.
we
what
don't have
makes
to
sense.
really make that call right at this point in
No,
time.
I
think
just
that-
wanted
But
to-
we just want all options on the table, so when we get to that point, now, board, you have to make a decision on this one.
Yep.
And we can focus just on that.
then last thing I wanted to show you, just because I know specifically Commissioner Potter, you mentioned this a couple times, we do have the drawings available for all of the lighting that's specific to the board area. So there's specific spotlights. It's kind of hard to see. I can zoom in a little bit further, but there's specific spotlights that are associated with each position.
Because one of the buildings we went to had a problem with that, because they had a problem with their lighting that they wish they'd have done a little different, or had to add cans afterwards because they had shadows all over.
Yep, so I just wanted to make sure you've seen, all of this is in there, it'll be in the documents. These will all be controllable, dimmable, they'll all be part of the overall system, so they'll be controllable from your touch pads, and they're all, each one of those represents a specific light that's able to be moved and focused in a specific way. Just to address what you mentioned at a previous meeting, Mr. Potter, that is all covered at this point.
Thank you.
Good.
Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a board area update and get
Since we have this here real quick, did you guys ever, when the state talked to you from the state DMV, or did they ever look at what we have for spaces and in there, and they were comfortable with what we allocated for a room? Because I know they kind of came to the party a little bit late.
Yes, we actually just met with the auditor's office, including all the people involved with the DMV, and they did run the plans by the state, and they were comfortable with the spaces that they have right now.
For them to bring testing out and everything.
Correct. They asked for a couple of specific storage areas that would be secured back in the DMV space, and we've supplied that with them. So that was the only change.
I just want to make sure that we had enough space required, that we were going to meet whatever they were going to need for space requirements.
They were
so.
good with the space they had. Again, they just had a couple of storage requests that we've accommodated.
And the fact that it looks like we're gonna have a drive-up for getting your tabs renewed, people were really liking that idea. Because if they got young children and that, they can just all stay in the car and get this done. And you can make that drive-in, so it's just tab renewals, only anything else you gotta come inside, make it simple. But people will disobey that, but of course, yeah.
At the moment, that's
They'll
all.
be just told.
That's all they're planning on accommodating there is just tab renewals.
That's all they can.
Because this is about customer service with this building is what it's about.
Correct. And we've done a significant amount of work with them to also accommodate the possibility of having different kind of queuing systems in the future, as far as, take a number and the number comes up, and having all that indicated if they don't install it on day one.
Good. Great.
In the new drawings, again, we'll have the drains where they belong and stuff like that.
Yes.
Pete?
I will double check that this week.
Well, then, thank you. I think you guys have direction on that then.
Yep, that's
Clarity.
perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. I guess I'm going to switch over here to Mr. Kelly. He's going to take the finance CIP from June 12th minutes.
Oh, just one quick clarification. We were supposed to roast coordinator, or excuse me, the administrator, starting at 11. Are we still gonna be able to do that?
Or what are we gonna do, or do you guys want to
This
postpone?
afternoon?
You'll have to be gone till
I
1.
do have a 1 o'clock meeting, so.
You have one?
I have a 1 o'clock meeting. I thought I was safe setting it at 1, but
So, I was just curious, unless he doesn't want to get roasted today and would prefer to
just have
hold
to do
off.
it. We could do it at noon and, let's see what we get
Depends
done
whatever
here.
you can do here. We will probably be foregoing the advisory updates
Yeah,
today.
for sure.
Fair enough, not that I got anything to say.
All right.
All right. As mentioned, the Finance CIP Committee met on June 12th with the two commissioners, Vegetable Leiden, myself, Lindsay Meyer, Sue Virgin. We were reviewing the draft finance policies and procedures. I should note the draft was included in the packet under item B. So Assistant County Administrator Virgin provided an update. Basically, we were reviewing it for last-minute changes in formatting. We'd received comments from the Attorney's Office that were incorporated. We did review the public purpose expenditures at the June leadership meeting, and no changes were proposed. We also had, some discussion about ditch policy, and that would be incorporated in this finance policies and procedures as we move forward. It should be noted, it is a working document. We will continue to revise and update this as necessary in the future. So we continued review where we had left off at the previous Finance CIP Committee meeting on May 22nd. We talked a little bit about motor pool policies and how relocating to a new facility may change how we want to operate there. Talked a little bit about bids and our ability to reject bids as part of an RFP process. Talked public expenditures, and ribbon cutting or public events was added to that. We did have discussion about the out-of-state travel policy, which is currently 506.02 in the personnel policy. We wanted to add additional language to indicate that if travel is being paid for by another agency, the department or elected official must notify the county board by way of placing the matter on the consent agenda for board consideration. If the out-of-state travel is budgeted or is budget neutral, it shall also be placed on the county board's agenda, on the consent agenda. However, if out-of-state travel is not in the budget, then it should be placed on the county board agenda as an item for consideration. So a slight change on what our practice has been, but mostly a clarification on how we want to move forward. Then there was discussion about looking at training, development, and tuition reimbursements and whether that should include reimbursements or certifications. So that's currently, we have a tuition reimbursement policy, so that will be looked at as part of that discussion. So for today, the recommendation was to approve the revised financial policies and procedures at today's board meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised financial policy.
I'll second
All
that.
right, we have a motion by Commissioner Dahlheiden, second by Commissioner Houston for the minutes and recommendations to adopt the financial policies and procedures for the county. Any other discussion?
Just for clarity, you're taking the minutes and the recommendation to adopt the policy
Yep.
together, or do you want to separate them out?
Together, I thought it was the motion together, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just for
Mr. Chair,
clarification.
I'm fine with that.
I think I do have one correction on page 93. That open. Am I wrong by, should that say assistant administrator in that box on the very top?
Assistant coordinator.
The grammar police are on the job.
Yeah.
It should.
Just to show you that I read it. Am I right on that or not?
Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Okay.
You're right.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Burrell was right.
Well, I find it interesting that Sue did this and she still thinks of herself as
She
a
demoted
coordinator,
herself.
not an administrator assistant.
That
Takes
was
a
the
while
last
to
thing out
get
the
it.
door before she was on vacation.
No. This is not, I read, the reason I was reading through in detail, this is not the same as there's another thing about, like, I talked to you a little bit about collecting debt. That's not this document.
That's the, debt collection, that's,
It wasn't, I couldn't find it in here anyway, but there was something about you were gonna be aggressively going after people that don't pay their property tax. That was not in this one,
It's
was it?
not in this. I mean, that's just kind of an operational procedure.
That one, because I did want it, we didn't approve that yet or anything.
No.
Yeah, I want to talk about that when that comes up. So I was looking for that in here, that's how I found it.
So we have a collection policy within this, but you're saying it doesn't address some of the other things.
Well, tell me what page it was on, what was it? Because maybe I did miss it as well.
I think it is in here, Charlie. What your concern was.
Yeah, well,
Charlie was concerned about, and I don't know where he showed it to me.
property taxes will be sold to satisfy
It
non-payment.
was
Yeah, the
about,
property
like,
taxes.
property tax and stuff like that, if it was not paid, that they're gonna go out aggressively after them and take their property and all this. And I said, I don't want to see I would like to see a little more compassion if the economy went bad. It's different if one person just says, I'm not paying my taxes, but if the economy were to go bad.
But I mean, right now, it's like at 3 years. I mean, you gotta be in deferred you have
Yeah,
to be
but
back 3 years. I mean,
Derek, I'm just going back, you watch movies or you read history about the Depression, where farms, and then they were taking people's farms, because it lasted more than 3 years. that
I
Depression.
sure hope like hell that we don't end up in that.
No, but I want to just make sure the wording so it gives some humanity to the thing.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Brill, I don't know if I'm familiar with the exact wording, but we do offer people a confession, what's called a confession of judgment. So after that 3-year period, they have an opportunity to enter into a confession of judgment to avoid tax forfeiture. And with the confession of judgment, you never see those. Those are approved by staff, by Bob. They can pay off their delinquent taxes over a period of 10 years.
Yeah.
So they're basically spreading taxes, penalties, and interest over a 10-year period. And by doing that, avoiding forfeiture, it does require them to come up with, they have to keep current with their taxes as well as part of that, so.
I mean, that's the thing is, once you get back so far, at a certain point, if you delay it out too far, they're never gonna be able to come back anyway, so, that's.
It's just that it used the word aggressively. I remember that, wherever can
Yeah,
anybody find it?
it's in the very first line.
Yeah.
On
of
what
that
page?
section.
We'll follow an aggressive policy.
On page 23.
So 23.
Very
Commissioner Burrell, do you want us to add item 10?
We will nicely go after.
Court discretion will use pit bulls?
No, okay.
We will respectfully go after collecting.
On 23, record retention requirements?
Oh, I'm sorry. On page 28.
28, the first statement out there.
Right under H, collection policy.
Wright County will follow an aggressive policy to maximize the collection of revenues to avoid shortfalls that may impact cash flow and prevent imposing additional
And
taxes.
all I want to add on to that is something about that in extreme economic depressed times, that you'd have a little softer tone, I guess.
Well, this is a living document. I mean, this thing at any given time can be modified. I mean, so if 5 years from now we hit another
I
Great
won't be on
Depression.
the board, I'll just be losing my farm 5 years from now, and so I won't be able to vote on it. No, I won't be doing that either, but
I don't know how you could soften that word up, because, I mean, it is the county's job that if you're a deadbeat, Charlie,
yeah,
and refuse to pay your taxes, we have to be aggressive to get it.
Otherwise, nobody will pay him otherwise.
okay.
I don't know how else we could soften
And
it.
Charlie, I hope future boards, if an economic downturn, really bad one comes, they will
come up with a policy.
They'll come up with something to address these.
It's similar to what the county ditch is right now, where we have some of these farmers that are getting a huge thing, and we did revisit it. Instead of paying your bill in 3 years, we stretched it out where they can pay it in 15 or 20 years, so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully a future board will do that, but I don't know. Whatever.
But, again,
Like I said, I won't be there later on, I'm only there now.
but as Brian said, we already do, after the 3-year time frame, they still have a way of.
Brian, what was the
taking care of it.
policy during the Depression? Same kind
Yeah,
of
you were
thing?
back, you were here.
Yeah, Brian, you were around.
If I remember correctly with history, I mean, the government basically reappropriated it for, I think it was even outside of the county levels, wasn't it? I don't even know.
There were a lot of sheriff sales.
A lot of sheriff, was that,
Mr. Chair,
or the feds?
Commissioner, I can only speak to, I grew up in Nicollet County, and I remember where the Nicollet County Poor Farm was. So people who lost their land ended up at least having a place to stay. They worked at the county Poor Farm, but I don't know if that'll happen again or not.
That'll be Charlie's place.
There was no private property protections during the
They don't make
Depression
people,
that are
Brian, they
now.
don't make people work anymore, you just take care of them. That's why
That's
we're
even better,
That's why
Charlie.
we're gonna go broke.
Hey, we survived the 08 housing downturn.
Okay, like I
so-
said, I won't be here when whatever, but I just hope that the future board would would look at the economy and, instead of just their bottom line. And I know an example is that there's a church over in Winston that had a Catholic school, and they're telling people, oh, don't worry about money, don't worry about money. And then a new priest comes in and says, pay off your back debt, and gave a lot of people bad credit reports, you know. So, I mean, I don't want to be putting out something that, you know, whatever.
None of us do. And the next time there's a big depression, Charlie, you and I will both be dead, so we won't care.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's gonna be that far out, huh? Because I hear you guys are both making 100, so.
No.
Okay, thank you. That was my.
That ain't happening.
Mr. Chair, the only other thing on the policy that to say is somewhere in the future, when I was talking to Hennepin County, they went away from the itemized receipts for thing and just give a set amount for if it's per diem and travel and that. So instead of having itemized the breakfast, lunch, dinner separate, travel 13% tip or what, it's just an X amount of money, period. They said that saved them a lot of headaches on that. So if you're out of state travel and you got all these allowances, it's just one set number.
Diem, so we don't put in for meals ever, do we?
I don't think anybody ever utilizes, the commissioners have never utilized meals.
I never have.
I've never have
Plus,
either.
most of the conferences have meals provided.
Right.
So.
That's
No,
true.
I think it's more for the employees that are going out.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, well, Hennepin County said it because when they analyzed how much time it takes for like in the auditor treasurers to verify, to reconcile everything, it was just a lot cheaper and more efficient just to do it that way.
Yeah.
Because it's the staff time going over that and say, oh, Commissioner Vetch, how come you tipped 13.2% when the policy says 13%?
Well, I think we'd have to look at if there really is an issue. And I just don't see that being an issue here at this county.
We don't have a lot of travel, so.
No.
Okay, anyway,
Yeah.
hopefully the future board will be kind to my farmer friends.
And
And hopefully they never have to go through it. I guess it'd be better yet, but.
We haven't voted yet on this, have we?
No, we have not.
I just have a comment. There was just, I'd like to see some periods added for consistency in some of these lists, but I kind of went through and
What page?
added that. A lot of
Otherwise, if you
pages.
want to maybe hand that over to Sue,
And I'll
so we
just hand it
don't.
over to Sue. I mean, this is not substance changes at all.
Yeah.
Just, just to kind of, for uniformity. But I did have a question on, let's see.
94.
Yeah, on page 94, which is under refreshments and meals. Under the meetings where non-employees are expected to attend, and it says vendor/ERP meetings, and in parentheses, it says cookies, coffee provided as vendor staff were there. So that sentence doesn't make sense to me.
Well, that was used as an example of one of the times when we allowed it.
But as vendors,
So maybe instead of the past ERP meeting, as an example.
as vendor staff were, that's what I didn't get, as vendor staff were there.
Okay, so we're having our ERP meeting.
Yep.
Vendors were there.
Yep.
We did have coffee and cookies.
Oh, okay, provided,
So,
so you mean like if vendor staff are there?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, okay, instead of as, it should be if.
if vendor staff are there, maybe.
Okay, can I,
The past tense.
Yeah.
can I turn in my receipts for the bagels then?
Yeah.
It's a very complete policy, so that's a lot of work, thank you.
All right.
Well, like they say,
Thank Lindsay too for all her.
Oh, yeah,
is she done this week?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. And then, well, like they said, this is a living document.
Living,
Things are
yeah.
gonna change. We don't have anything regarding robots in here yet, so, I mean, things are gonna have to change.
Yes, yes, yes.
Can you put some humor in this thing too? It's kinda dry reading.
Okay.
So,
There's been a motion and a
There's a
second.
motion, a second, no vote yet.
yep. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Resolution,
Is it?
isn't it?
No?
No, this is no resolution, that's the next one coming up.
Next one, yep.
Oh, sorry.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. Revision to personnel policies per the Finance CIP recommendations. Amendment to Personnel Policy 506, business-related expenses reimbursement.
So again, this change is related to clarifying the out-of-state travel expenses language. I think the red line copy was provided in your packet there.
This is just mirroring it to the personnel policy with the finance policy. So do we have a
Chair, I'll
motion?
make- oh.
Motion by Commissioner Hewsom,
Second.
second by Commissioner Dahleden. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Now it's the repeal personnel policy 803, conflicts of interest in its entirety.
Right, so this language was incorporated, taken out of 803, if you will, and put into this finance policy. So it's just kind of crossing the T and that we're taking it out of the personnel policy.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Dahleden,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hewsom. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And getting to the end of the year, item C here, we have a resolution of support for public transit and cooperative partnerships. This is kind of a gesture from MnDOT, just because there's a variety of JPAs in the state that are
Have conflicts?
conflicts, and they're looking to, if you're going to receive MnDOT funds for your transit systems, that we ask that you utilize them, and it's kind of a request to, or a suggestion to
Play
show-
nice.
Play nice, make a show of faith, and put members that are going to be on your joint powers agreement that are going to utilize the funds.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
We have a motion by Commissioner
Second.
Dolan, second by Commissioner Potter.
So is this a way to get one of my friends on McLeod County off the board?
This is purely
You're
not.
pledging and hereby pledges to appoint board members to the Transit Governing Board who support public transit. I mean, can't you be on a board if you don't really support it all that much?
Why would you want to be on a board?
Right.
Because to keep it down and limit it and maybe get rid of it sometime. You know?
But that's
It's
not
a
the right
waste
way
of-
to go about it.
It's a waste of taxpayers' dollars, not necessarily county, although we wasted enough in Wright County. But why can't somebody be against something? It's just, you're gonna have a bunch of Gary yes-men with this. Did Gary write this or what?
Actually, he did not.
Who did it come from?
Who did it come from? Actually, a group.
Huh?
A variety of people that actually contributed to the language in this.
I'm not gonna vote for it. I mean, you guys can vote for it if you want. I just think you shouldn't be telling people how, you're basically telling them you're gonna toe the line. You're gonna say jumping on there
No,
and
this
say
is,
how high.
this is not, that's not the entirety of
Well,
it. Really,
because anytime I disagree with Gary now, you don't care about transit. Your board has to take you off.
no, you want people that basically
Questions?
question stuff, or it's more of a, if you have a certain amount of money, okay, that you're given, and it's okay if you get what you want in your area, but I won't support what your partner wants in their area. So then you're not being a good partner. So what they're asking then is that we want people that are going to be on this, that are wanting to be good partners, not just self-centric. We want people that are going to utilize the funds to the,
And then we have to put people on there, not only that support it, but that support and promote the transit mission, but to expand public transit services yet. So we have to now put people on that are even in favor of, you have to be in favor of expanding it. This is like telling the board members how they have to vote, or they should be taken off the board. I don't like it. I think it's a terrible document.
no, then that's okay, Charlie, and if, you know.
But I don't know why you guys don't see through that. It's just you're gonna toe the line. I never saw a document like that before. Did you ever see one, Brian?
I don't know where this.
I've never seen anything like that in my life even.
I mean, if you want to go along with it, I will happily remove the expand public transit piece to it. I mean, expansion is a loosely used term, because expanding in one area may not be needed, because expansion in McLeod and Sibley County, in our case, they are a mature system. They have actually captured about as much ridership as they can
Were you on
potentially
the group
capture.
that wrote this, Derek?
Right.
or Were you on the
I
group?
was on the group that wrote this, but, and it's okay for Sibley and McLeod County, they might not care to expand. Wright County, we are in our infancy stages of capturing our ridership. So it's easy when you have a partnership with other members that don't want to expand because they have a mature system. And that's where the discussion kind of
And
came
Derek,
from.
we'll have to talk about this another time, but I don't know how you can call yourself a conservative and support this. It's such a waste of taxpayer money. And like I said, it's like, oh, we want to get our share, and the counties, I don't think we should be doing that, unless it's really a viable thing. It's just such a waste.
But Commissioner Burrell, the philosophy is on being my fiduciary duty to the county and getting the maximization of the county, of the resources, yes, resource for the money. Now, my mission about getting rid of public transit is to do that in St. Paul. And if I don't believe in public transit, I talk to my legislators and getting them to defund it from that level. You don't defund things from this level by not accepting the grants, then you're just doing a poor fiduciary duty to your commissioners.
I got that.
And I've talked with other people that, you know what, if you don't believe in public transit, take that to St. Paul. Don't take it to a joint powers agreement board and try to defund it from the inside out.
I'm not saying to defund it, but you should be able to talk against it on your board.
Well, yeah.
To say, hey, look, but Derek, you should be honest and say, look, I think this is a waste of money. I talk to my state representative and state senator all the time to cut it back. It's a total boondoggle, but I'm going to be here in Wright County taking as much as I can. That's one thing, but that's not what this document says.
No, that doesn't. This document, you're reading into it too much.
I don't know.
Mr. Chair, I would say that, in that part about expanding, it's just to meet at least 90% of the demand throughout the entire designated service. So it's not like you're trying to expand everything, you're trying to
Just to 90% of it.
expand to meet 90% of the demand. So that's not,
And that's the metric
right,
that
it's not
Minnetonka
to create more demand, it's the demand is there, and
This whole statewide system it needs to get looked at, and the federal government is throwing money at this too. We'd be better off, Commissioner Potter said it a long time ago, you'd be better off to subsidize somebody's cab fare. And then they can get to work on time.
Well,
'Cause
we've
they're not
got-
even gonna get to work with this here thing.
we've got so many.
Unless you work for functional industries.
Exactly, and that's,
And which is, I support functional industries, but they have their own bus fleet too.
No, they contract a lot with.
Now they do.
Trailblazer.
They're getting rid of buses more and more as they can.
I know, because we're doing more and more of it, but years ago, they took care of lion's share of their rides.
Well, River Rider.
River Rider did some, yep.
But according to the guy out there, he claimed that River Rider refused to accept any more
right,
riders.
yeah,
Well,
they,
they probably couldn't, we had limited resources, so we didn't.
And just for clarify for Commissioner Burrell, it's not just the state part, Charlie, it's the federal part.
Oh, yeah.
Federal demands, part of what the federal allotment to all the districts here go towards transit. And if you're not participating, somebody else getting that money. In the last 7W committee, Wright County Trailblazer Transit is coming out smelling like a rose in the next 4 years on extra money coming from the feds to meet unmet needs. And like I said, we have unmet needs in this county, unlike Sibley and McLeod, are pretty much saturated, and we're not in that same boat.
Charlie, if you were at that Wright County Community Action Summit, transportation came up regarding with mental health, regarding with homelessness. It was unbelievable how much it came out. Is this the best way? I probably have to agree with you that it's not. It's not the most efficient way. Maybe we should put trains out here.
Well, something with a schedule that we could get people
You can't get to
their
that
job
until
on a
you're urban
consistent
enough.
basis.
Scheduled rides is basically what happens when you have densely urban areas. You know what, could that happen in 10, 20 years from now in parts of Wright County? Absolutely. But St. Cloud their scheduled service is still relatively in infant stage. They don't even have scheduled bus service in Maple Grove, really.
That's right, they don't.
right.
What is, Derek, what if you didn't have this here document? What would happen?
What would happen?
Yeah.
I guess
Trailblazer still goes on and this
is to show faith, basically, because there's a potential chance that we could be considered a risk liability by MnDOT, which will basically cause loss of funds for the states that will be allocated to other transit systems within the state. And now that, I would say, is a travesty to a Wright County especially, because you know what? We are in our infant stages. We have a lot of riders that we are turning down. Sibley and McLeod County, they may not care so much because if they don't get any expansion, they don't want any expansion. They're a mature system. They don't need any more buses. They don't need any more ridership.
They're probably at 90% already.
Yes, they are close to.
So what if Sibley and McLeod don't do this resolution and just we do? What happens?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of different possible things that could play out. I guess right now, we can talk about it later. I
just don't see the need for this. I wish we wouldn't have it, but anyway. And then it's kind of weird too, because you have page 1 and then page 2 and the
That's the way
signature
our
thing in
resolutions
between.
are showing up.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. But
They're
anyway.
working on it.
But go ahead.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Any other further discussion? I'll start off. Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
Resolution passes 4-1. I guess since we are already at noon, is there anybody that has any kind of pressing information that they would like to cover?
I can share it next time.
I'll share it next time.
So I think,
I don't want to share.
I'll share mine next time. This is getting, all right, then we will adjourn this meeting at 11:55.